All right, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me go ahead and let me clear my throat out because I just ate. Ha 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 ha! Woo! Sorry about that. Just had to clear my throat. I just ate a club sandwich, so I want to make sure my system is completely clear, so you guys can get my unadulterated and uninterrupted voice. Sorry for this particular reading going out so late in the day. It's also the last day of June, so I had to take care of my One Piece reflections as well. But now, after I've eaten, I don't need to worry about anything else. So let's go ahead and get started with the next 10 chapters. I said next 10. Next 10 chapters of Solo Leveling. Chapter 21. Well, actually, you know what? Just a little bit of a recap. We've seen Jin get stronger and stronger, and thus take on a job that promised a lot of pay, but then he ran into the job itself is being run by one Huang Dong-suk, who, despite how cheery he may seem on the outside, has taken the opportunity of taking advantage of, Jinno and Jin, and seeks to imprison them inside of this dungeon so they can reap all the rewards for themselves. Of course, they don't know just how strong Jin actually is, so it's only a matter of time. And the room that Jin and Jinno are stuck inside just happens to be the boss room. And Jin is preparing to fight this giant spider. Let's begin. Chapter 21. The exoskeleton looks pretty tough. Can my dagger even damage it? Quite obviously, a dagger would have a... Sorry, I scrolled down the page too quickly. Quite obviously, a dagger would have a shorter reach than a steel longsword Jin used before. So if he wanted to cause a deep wound, he needed to strengthen his attacks. Jin held the dagger in the reverse grip. He figured that it'd be easier to hurt the monster by holding the blade in this fashion. Finally, the spider stood before Jin. Then it raised its two front legs up and bent them at an angle. What is it trying to do? His curiosity lasted only for a brief moment. Jin's eyes shot open wide next. Slam! If he didn't instinctively tilt his body out of the way, the spider's legs would have penetrated his chest just now. The spider's legs stabbed into the ground behind him before rising up in the air, its joints folding back up. And from the ends of its legs, pieces of the rocky ground fell. Jin sneaked a glance behind him. The stone floor now had a pretty substantial hole in it. If I got hit by that, it wouldn't have ended with me feeling a bit of ache in my chest, huh? Jin's glare sharpened even more. Now was the time he needed to concentrate even harder. I read that wrong. Now was the time he needed to concentrate even harder. Sorry, my inflection was wrong. It's coming! The spider's legs that initially resembled bullets being fired could now be captured in his eyes. Left. He ducked his head lower to evade the spider's left front leg. Right. He tilted his body back and let the spider's right leg brush past him before he took a step closer. Right. He evaded the spider's leg that took aim at his head once more and took 2 steps forward this time. Left, right, right, left, right, 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 left, left. Slam, boom, quang, kaboom, slam, boom, quang, kaboom. The spider's legs stabbed and destroyed the ground so soundly that his ears actually felt numb from the pain. Hello, kitty, it's good to see you. Jin evaded the spider's attacks one by one and got closer and closer to the monster. Meanwhile, Jinno couldn't quite believe his own eyes. What the heck is up with this guy? Even though he was watching from afar, those attacks were so ferocious that all the hair on the back of his head was standing up. However, that man was avoiding them all while standing right in front of the monster, not to mention he was actually getting closer too. Seeing that efficient and calm movement, Eugenio felt a chill ran down his spine. It almost said Genu here, but Eugenio felt a chill run down his spine. And he's supposed to be an E rank? There was no freaking way. If it was him standing there and not Sung Jinu, then he'd be torn into a rag by now. He didn't have any confidence whatsoever to dodge those attacks even once. However, Jin was evading them without making a single mistake. An E rank doing something that a D rank hunter such as himself couldn't even dream of doing? There could only be one explanation for this. He's a fake registrant! Eugenio's expression hardened. Out of those highly talented hunters, there were a few who could freely control his or her magical energy. If they felt like it, they could easily fake the results and get a lower ranking. Hunters who got assigned lower ranks than what they should have got in the first place, simply by hiding a portion of their magic energy, such people were labeled as fake registrants. And perhaps more alarmingly, most of those fake registrants carried around rather sinister motives for doing so. Such as that serial killer whose hobby was to enter low-ranked dungeons and murder all the other lower-ranked hunters. As only those who were present knew what happened inside a dungeon, there was no better place to commit crimes than the world behind the gates. Eugenio nervously swallowed his saliva. We now have our first count of swallowed saliva in a sentence. We didn't have a lot of them in the last session, but we got one now. That's one. Suddenly, Jin seemed far scarier than the spider. And just why did I have to insist on coming to this place? Jino felt like he'd break out in sobs at any moment now. In the meantime, the spider's attacks poured down without a break. Jin dodged all of those attacks and grew confident of his victory. Having decreased the distance between them little by little, the head of the spider was almost within his reach now. The attack pattern of the spider was rather simple, so he could get close to it pretty easily. For now, I'll aim for its eyes. It was the basics of all basic rules to attack the monster's weak points, so he decided to attack the eyes of the spider, which looked to be the weakest point in its defenses. As soon as I stab my dagger into those eyes. Just as Jin made up his mind, he suddenly sensed that the spider's attacks had slowed down for some reason. Was it because his eyes had adjusted fully to the speed of its attacks? Boom! Slam! No, that wasn't it. His eyes might have been misled, but his hearing could not be fooled. The loud noises coming from the exploding ground came to him a beat slower than before. Since a few seconds ago, Jin was already pretty confident of his rather excellent sense of hearing, so he could feel this subtle change. It was then a certain ominous premonition flickered past in his brain. When he took a closer look, the muscles around the vicinity of the spider's mouth were trembling quite imperceptibly. Why is it trying to open its mouth now? Jin had been getting ready to jump up 3 meters and reach the head of the spider, but he sensed something ominous was about to happen. Jin hurriedly changed the direction of his jump from forward to his rear. And then, splash! My apologies. I didn't realize that the standby screen was still up. You guys are supposed to have the screen where you can see chat off to the side. Sorry about that, everybody. Splash! From the mouth of the spider, dirty and turbid liquid spewed out. Jin rolled on the floor for a second before regaining his balance. He quickly took a look behind him. The spot on the floor he had been standing only a second ago was now emitting smoke as it got scorched back. Sizzle. Stones on the floor melted away powerlessly. Jin swallowed his saliva after seeing that. That's 2. If I had jumped forward just now, it wouldn't have been only the floor that was melting right now. Perhaps sensing that Jin had been distracted, the spider rushed towards him in no time. Russell! Jin raised his head. By then, the spider was already right in front of his eyes. Shh! Jin jumped up to evade the giant spider's legs. Slam! The bastard's attack had recommenced. Darn it. After that, Jin got near the monster's head several times more. Every time he did that, though, he had no choice but to retreat in order to evade that disgusting digestive juice. When the spider's attack pattern had become two, it became that much harder to deal with it. If he got closer after evading all those snapping legs, the digestive juice spewed out. Its legs attacked again once he had to retreat to a distance because of the juices. Crap. Feeling frustrated now, he decided to attack the legs with his dagger. Unfortunately, the legs were also covered in that thick exoskeleton. I said exoskeleton, kind of weird there, sorry. Unfortunately, the legs were also covered in that thick exoskeleton, and no matter how many times he cut it, he couldn't even nick it once. Jin bit his lower lip. This isn't going to work. The spider only needed its two front legs to attack him, but on the other hand, he needed to use his entire body to evade them. It was obvious who would tire out first here. Tiredness. Tiredness, 57. As he thought, his tiredness stat was rapidly rising up. When this stat hit 70, his speed would decrease, and when it reaches 90, his breathing would become too heavy and it'd become that much harder to freely move about. He was running out of time. If I want to get closer to it, then... Speed. His speed was the issue. Boom! 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 Wait. Speed, is it? As Jin continued to barely evade each of the legs raining down, a thought entered his mind. Yeah, I had that, didn't I? He indeed possessed a single active skill. He had forgotten all about it because there was no need for him to use it, until now. Dash! You've activated skill Dash. Your movement speed has increased by 30%. 1 mana will be spent every minute during its activation. You know, in the grand scheme of things, as a video game player, 1 mana spent every minute for your speed to be increased is not that bad. 1 mana every minute? That's not bad. Along with those messages, Jin's body became even faster as if a booster had been activated. Evading the spider's legs had become even easier as a result. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Boom, boom, boom. Gave myself the hiccups there. Fantastic. He swiftly evaded the spider's legs, slamming down like lightning bolts, and in the blink of an eye, arrived before the monster. Taken by surprise, the spider hurriedly spewed out its digestive juice. However, thanks to the increase in his speed, his movement had now this certain composure to it. Jin easily evaded the digestive juice and pounced toward the spider's head. Slash! His dagger slashed at the spider's eyes. Effect: paralysis has been activated. The effect has been cancelled due to the high resistance of the target. Effect: bleeding has been activated. The target's stamina will decrease by 1% per second. Yes! One of the 2 special effects the Poison Fang of Kasuga possessed had activated successfully. The spider roared out and staggered about. Jin didn't miss this opening. The moment his 2 feet landed back on the ground, he jumped up again and climbed on the spider's body to get to the top of its head. The spider went crazy and swung its legs all over the place, but Jin wasn't going to let those blind attacks land on him. Slam! Boom! Kaboom! Holes continued to appear on the poor, blameless ground instead. Now standing on top of the spider's head, Jin began stabbing the eyes of the spider with his dagger. Stab! 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 The spider rampaged around this way and that, but Jin endured till the end. and continued to shove his dagger into the head of the spider. The spider began tottering about dangerously. It was obviously getting damaged now. Seeing this, Jin's hands picked up speed. And eventually, the huge body of the spider finally tilted to the side. Third! However, Jin didn't stay his hand. No, he kept going at it until the spider was dead for sure. Jin's a firm believer in the double tap. I can get it. I can understand. Stab! 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 Along with the final gasps from the spider, several messages popped up in his view.
You've killed the owner of this dungeon. Level up, level up, level up.
I did it. While covered from head to toe in the spider blood, Jin raised his hands up high. Maybe because it was a boss monster, his level jumped up by 3. Status window. Name, Sung Jinu. Level, 21. Class, none. Title, none. HP, 2600. MP, 391. Tiredness, 0. Stats, Strength, 53. Stamina, 30. Agility, 38. Intelligence, 30. Perception, 32. Available points to distribute, 0. Skills, passive skills. Unknown level max. Tenacity level 1. Active skills. Dash level 1. Hey, that double tap saves. It ain't dead until its innards aren't inside anymore. Hey, you and me, we both know, kitty. We both know that it's not over until the body is everywhere. From level 18, he had jumped up to reach 21 in one go. And that wasn't even the end. Besides the level up messages, something else also popped up as well.
Ding! Store buy function is now available with your level having reached 20.
Oh, so I can finally spend those gold things now, eh? That was a nice message for sure. However, now wasn't the right time to relaxedly browse through the store. Rumble. The cave began to shake just a little.
With the death of the dungeon's owner, the entrance of the dungeon will be destroyed in 1 hour. Remaining time, 59 minutes and 58 seconds.
Indeed, he had to get out of this place before the gate closed on him. After all, browsing through the store could be done once he was somewhere safe. Just as Jin was about to climb down, he spotted something gleaming brightly in the middle of the spider's head. Is that an item? However, unlike the monsters from the instant dungeon, there was no message about recovered items, nor could he automatically claim them. What could it be, then? Jin pondered briefly before realizing what it was. Ah, these things have magic crystals, don't they? No matter how busy he was, how could he forget something so valuable like that? Jin extracted the magic crystal hidden deep inside the head of the dead spider. This was a C-rank magic crystal extracted from the boss monster, so it should go for around 10 million won, easy. As the trophy for his glamorous victory, this would do very nicely. Jin lightly jumped down from the dead spider's head. He landed lightly on the ground and turned around, and, well, he discovered more gleaming lights, this time coming from the spider's belly. Not only that, but several of them even. Jin was now feeling rather surprised. He heard stories of some monsters possessing 2, 3 magic crystals, but there were simply too many lights to say those could all be magic crystals. What could they be, then? He used the dagger to slice open the belly and continued on to its stomach, which resulted in half-digested remains of the insect-type monsters to pour out to the ground. And the lights were coming from those. No way! Jin rummaged through the dead insects one at a time. And just as he suspected, they all possessed their magic crystals. Sure, a few of them had melted down and become smaller than before, but quite a lot of them had survived and remained as good as new. When he collected the intact ones, He counted over 10. I really hit the jackpot this time. He came to earn this month's rent, but at this rate, he'd be earning way more than that.
Young Nim?
When Jin looked back, he saw Jinho there.
Please put them in here.
Jinho then proceeded to carefully tuck in the magic crystals belonging to Jin inside his equipment bag. He reached inside the corner of the same bag and pulled out a thermos before pouring the flask contents on its lid.
Young Nim, you must be feeling thirsty. Please drink this. It's water.
Indeed, it was a cold, refreshing cup of water, filled right up to the edge. Why is this kid doing something no one asked him to? And that is the end of Chapter 21. Onwards to Chapter 22. Since Jin was feeling thirsty anyway, he took the thermos lid to drink the water. I say this just to make sure that when I go back through this, in order to timestamp everything, should you leave this video at any time when it becomes a VOD, you'll have the perfect place to know exactly which chapter is where. Chapter 22. Since Jin was feeling thirsty anyway, he took the thermos lid to drink the water, but his head never stopped tilting in the meantime. The water slid down his throat and refreshed him quite nicely.
Young Nim, did you enjoy it?
Before he had noticed it, the honorific had changed to Young Nim, too. Yeah, it's refreshing. Jin spoke his earnest opinion and handed the lid over to Jinho.
And the things you saw in here?
Oh, and the things you saw in here. Even before Jin could finish his sentence, Jinho quickly cut in, as if to say that there's nothing to worry about.
Of course, I won't say anything to anyone, and take this secret with me to my grave.
No, hang on. No need to take it to your grave.
But, of course, I will. It'll be a promise between young Nim and I, after all.
Well, in that case, okay, if you say so.
You don't have to worry about a thing, young Nim.
It wasn't as if anyone would believe the claim that an E-rank soloed the boss of a rank C gate anyway. Still, the kid was saying he'd voluntarily keep his mouth shut, and that would certainly make his life a bit easier. I thought he didn't know how to take a hint, but he's pretty quick on the uptake on things like this, eh?
Is there anything else you'd like to tell me, young Nim?
No, not particularly. Well, that sounded a bit suspect there. Jin studied the overly polite mannerism of Jinho and inwardly questioned his motives, before coming to a conclusion of his own. Well, yeah. From Jinho's perspective, I did save his life and all. Wasn't it the most obvious thing in the world that you'd become really courteous and humble towards a person who saved your life? When looked at that way, his attitude made more sense. The reality of the situation was slightly different from that, though.
Rumble.
That's my rumbling sound effect, I hope you don't mind.
Rumble.
The dungeon shook around for a bit again before its tremors stopped. That tremor was a reminder that the gate would close in a little while. The tremors would progressively get worse as time went by, and just before the gate closed, it morphed into a full-blown earthquake. Let's get out of here.
Yes, young Nim.
Jin began walking towards the entrance. Before they reached it, though, there was a sudden flash of light, and the rocks blocking up the entrance collapsed.
Boom!
Afterwards, Huang Dong-suk and his goons rushed into the boss room. As soon as they spotted the dead spider behind Jin, their expressions became dumbfounded.
What the heck? It's really dead?
Did those two hunt it?
That spider must have been nothing much, even with that big body and all.
Well, if a rank D and a rank E managed to kill it, then.
Huang Yang, what should we do now?
Huang Dong-suk scratched his chin while gazing at Jin and Jinho. With the spider dead, the gate would soon close. It'd be too late to start mining the monarch stones now. They hadn't even finished getting ready, yet the remaining time was now less than an hour. It was time for the Plan B. So he loudly called out to Yu Jin-O.
You, Jin-O!
Jin-O flinched and took a step back. His face was full of nervous tension. An oily smile floated up on Hwang Dong-suk's face.
I thought your gear looked real eye-catching, so we did a background check on you, and it turns out you're the son of a real big shot. The son of the Yujin Constructions owner, Yoon Myung-han, no less.
So what?
We'll give you a chance. I've got some stuff to discuss with your old man, you see. However, it'd get real troublesome for us if the matters of this place get out. So if you wish to live, you better become our accomplice.
An accomplice?
Hwang Dong-suk pointed at Jin with his chin. Being on the receiving end of that disgusting stare, Jin's forehead creased for a second.
Kill Sung Jin-woo.
What?
Jin-O freaked out, and Hwang Dong-suk chuckled as if he found that expression rather funny. The thing was, he used his phone to do an online search and found out that Yu Jin-O's father was the owner of the top construction company in the country. Seeing that, a sinister scheme formed in his head. He'd filmed the scene of Jin-O killing Sung Jin-woo, and then, under the pretext of keeping his mouth shut, blackmail Yoon Myung-han. The known wealth of Yoon Myung-han is supposedly around 10 trillion won, wasn't it? Almost 9 billion US dollars. He might be able to reel in several times more money than mining these monocrystals if he played his cards right.
That's the only way you'll leave this place alive. As long as you kill Sung Jin-woo with your own hands, we'll let you live. If not, we kill both of you.
Hwang Dong-suk's eyes became very hostile right away. I already know I'm gonna love this chapter.
What are you hesitating for? No one will know what happens inside a dungeon anyway. Wait, could it be that you're scared of a rank E, even though you're a rank D?
Jin-O turned his head to his side. Jin shrugged his shoulders as his answer. He was implying that Jin-O should do whatever he felt like. With a determined expression, Jin-O unsheathed the sword on his hips.
Finally, he made up his mind, huh?
A smile formed on Hwang Dong-suk's mouth. Unfortunately for him, his expectation was not met. Still holding that sword, Jin-O stood alongside Jin.
Oh? So you want to team up with that guy and fight us, is that right?
Hwang Dong-suk muttered softly. A scion of a well-to-do family got lucky and killed a rank C boss, and it looked like his ego had become bloated somewhat as a result. Jo Gyu-hwan whispered from the side.
Young, what should we do now?
Hwang Dong-suk lowered his voice so both Jin and Jin-O wouldn't be able to hear him.
For now, take care of Sung Jin-woo first. We gotta hold on to that potential money bag. Our losses today are pretty substantial after all.
Okay, will do.
Jo Gyu-hwan's hands began emitting bright light next. Seeing this, Jin's eyes narrowed to a slit. In the end, they want to have a go, huh? This would be his first time fighting against other hunters. However, he wasn't planning to go easy on these bastards that have aimed for his life several times already. But then, this happened.
Kring!
There was that mechanical beep again.
An emergency quest has been generated.
An emergency quest? Jin raised his head. He didn't even say anything about wanting to look at the contents, yet the quest window spread out before his eyes without his consent. Now that was a first.
Emergency quest. Kill all the enemies.
There are life forms holding murderous intentions towards the player. Kill them all in order to secure your own safety. If you do not follow this instruction, a corresponding penalty will be given. The number of enemies left to kill, 8. The number of killed enemies, 0. Jin's eyes opened wider. In order to complete the quest, Hong Dong-suk and his teammates must all die?
It was then a beam of light flashed right before his eyes. The light beams left Zhou Gyo-hwan's hands and flew straight at Jin. Boom! Flung away by the explosion, Jin's figure flew at a frightening speed and slammed into the cave wall. Slam! A portion of the wall collapsed and fell on top of Jin. Hyungnim! Jin-oh froze on the spot from surprise. Don't sweat over the dead guy, and why don't you come over here? Hong Dong-suk beckoned with his fingers. Jin-oh stared at the spot where Jin was. Just like what Hong Dong-suk had implied, Jin wasn't moving an inch as he remained buried under the rubble. You murderers! Tears pooled around Jin-oh's eyes. Hong Dong-suk and his goons simply giggled at the label of murderers thrown at their way. Well, that was the truth, to begin with anyway. Just how many died by their hands inside many other dungeons. While they were looking at Jin-oh and continued to smile, Jin was under the pile of rubble, doubting his own eyes at the moment. The contents of the quest were slowly changing. That was why.
Emergency quest. Kill all the enemies. There are life forms holding murderous intentions towards the... Kill them all in order to secure your own safety. If you do not follow this instruction... Number of enemies left to kill, 8. Number of killed enemies, 0.
A few words suddenly became illegible before changing their shapes.
Emergency quest. Kill all the enemies.
And here it just repeats the same. Oh, no, it does not. Pardon me.
There are life forms holding murderous intentions towards you. Kill them all in order to secure your own safety. If you do not follow this instruction, your heart will cease functioning. The number of enemies left to kill, 8. The number of killed enemies, 0.
What a clear-cut threat that was. If he didn't finish the quest as intended, it would kill him instead.
Kill if I don't want to be killed. Is that it?
The contents were pretty shocking, but Jin's fluster didn't remain for long. No, his flustered mind rapidly morphed into one of relief. Even he found it hard to believe, but that was the truth. There was this fear that always lingered in his mind, starting from the day these quests popped up in front of his eyes alongside stat values and such. What would happen to me if this mysterious phenomenon suddenly stopped? What if all these things only happened as a coincidence, and they could end at any given moment? Such fear always accompanied him. However, through this emergency quest, the truth became clear. Things happening to him were not a coincidence, nor were they some weird goodwill from someone. If the quest was generated by something holding some form of goodwill, then it should have just said, "Overcome this danger," and not threaten to kill him as a penalty. The system had a clear purpose. It was either make Sung Jinwoo strong, or need a strong Sung Jinwoo.
And depending on the situation, me who could kill other hunters at the drop of a hat even.
He could glean such intentions from the system now. Jin felt reassured by that revelation.
What a relief that.
That, it was not a coincidence. That, it definitely had a goal. Whenever he found himself in danger, he yearned to be stronger. He so dearly wished to stop living the life where it was no different from dangling precariously on the edge of a cliff. But on that fateful day, during the most dangerous moments of his life, his opportunity came. The goal of the system and Jin's wishes lined up perfectly.
The system is using me, and I'm using the system.
That was all there was to it. As long as there was an end goal, a purpose, this phenomenon would never suddenly vanish from his eyes. Jin slowly got up from the rubble. CDs, it's good to see you as well. We are currently on chapter 22, where we're dealing with the fact that Jin has been attacked by one of Hwang Dong-suk's men.
Jin slowly got up from the rubble.
HP 1360 out of 2600.
As expected of a magic spell shot by a rank C hunter. It was only a single hit, yet his HP had almost halved. There was no more room left to take it easy now. Intense malice filled up in Jin's eyes. He began walking towards Huang Dong-suk.
What the heck?
Huang Dong-suk and his goons had been surrounding the scared Jinno, so they ended up discovering Jin rather belatedly.
What's going on here? He's still alive.
But Q Huan looks like a dead fish, though.
What an embarrassment this is. He's a measly E rank, you know.
Huang Dong-suk scratched his chin.
Hey, Yu Huana, why didn't you finish him properly the first time?
Zhou Gyuhuan's face reddened somewhat.
Yeah, I should've.
But this wasn't right. He really did pour his all with that shot. He had spent over a third of his overall magic energy. Yet how could this kid stand back up? Could the attack not connect properly? But then, there wouldn't have been such a loud explosion if that was the case. Lots of questions formed in his head, but there was no time to ask them. Because Jin opened his mouth first. Since you're playing around with people's lives. The eyes of Huang Dong-suk's group were now fixed on Jin. He came to a stop in front of them. Jinno flinched in surprise, but the reactions of other hunters were rather subdued. Some of them even began smirking in derision. Jin spoke with a dry voice. You've all sufficiently resolved yourselves, right? Huang Dong-suk let out a snort after hearing that. What the? Sorry. Oh man, I breathed in too heavily. Had to take a sip of water there. Sorry. Huang Dong-suk let off a snort after hearing that. I gave myself hiccups again! Now is not the time for this. I'm reading. I don't need this right now. Let's try this again. Huang Dong-suk let off a snort after hearing that.
What the heck is this fool even saying?
Young
Nim, let me handle this kid.
Oh, you laughing? Did I keep giving myself hiccups?
Young Nim, let me handle this kid.
A hunter with tiny little eyes approached Jin and placed his hands around the latter's neck.
Looks like you, mister, haven't really figured out the situation yet. But the thing is... Huh?
The expression of the tiny eyes became weirder and weirder as he strengthened his arms.
What the heck? Why can't I pull him down?
He tried to perform a headlock with his physical strength, but no matter how hard he pulled, Jin's upper body showed no sign of budging. Never heard you hiccup before? Yeah. Yeah. It happens. It happens. That's what my hiccups sound like. And it was kind of forceful and directly into the mic, so I apologize for that. He tried to perform a headlock with his physical strength, but no matter how hard he pulled, Jin's upper body showed no sign of budging. And you say why it sound like it's part of the series? Or me doing the hiccups? It shouldn't be. He tried to perform a headlock with his physical strength, but no matter how hard he pulled, Jin's upper body showed no sign of budging. Wasn't this bastard supposed to be only a rank E? Cold sweat formed on the forehead of the tiny eyes. How could he be this strong? It happened then. Slice! The head of the tiny eyes fell to the ground. Thud.
Juntae!
Huang Dong-suk's eyes trembled like an earthquake.
What the heck?
That knife! Just when did he...
Where did he get that? Huang Dong-suk and his goons quickly took several steps back, and yanked their weapons out. Jin's hand was already holding the poison fang of Kasaka. Blood dripped from the tip of the blade.
Ding! The number of enemies left to kill, 7. The number of killed enemies, 1.
7 left. And that is the end of chapter 22. Onwards to chapter 23. Jin swept his gaze at Huang Dong-suk and his group like a predator eyeing his prey. Huang Dong-suk swallowed his saliva. That's 3 now. He was already pretty surprised by the dagger appearing in that man's hands. But more importantly, Park Jun-tae's death shook him to the core rather greatly.
How did an E-rank hunter kill a D-rank in 1 hit?
He had no idea what kind of a trick the other guy used, but from now on, underestimating his opponent was definitely forbidden. No, he had to be very meticulous here. Huang Dong-suk gave a signal with his eyes to his side.
Yuhwana, hit him 1 more time.
Jogyu Hwana lightly nodded his head. This time, he wouldn't make the same mistake again. Jogyu Hwan told himself such as light began gathering in his hands again. But, even before the arrows of light could leave his fingertips, Jin appeared right in front of Jogyu Hwan first.
Huh?
Jogyu Hwan's jaw hit the floor. The light in Jin's eyes gleamed coldly. You first. You first. The magic-type hunter who possesses strong firepower but a weak body. Jin had finished his calculations already. The dagger stabbed straight through Jogyu Hwan's neck. Stab! Jogyu Hwan tried to cover the hole in his neck and collapsed to the floor. Plop.
Kill him!
With that, as a signal, the hunters around him rushed towards Jin at once. Jin raised all his senses to the maximum and calmly focused on the movements of his enemies. All sounds disappeared, and time slowed down. The agility stat in its 38 points had begun displaying its worth. He then dodged, he then blocked or evaded swords. Spears and arrows began being thrust at him from the very short distance. The eyes of the hunters became incredibly large.
How can an E-rank move like this? Too fast!
I can't hit him at all!
The complexions of the hunters became ashen. Indeed, speed was a subjective thing. To their eyes, Jin's movement was absurdly fast. Meanwhile, Jin waded in among the hunters and calmly cut into their vital spots one at a time. I remember reading through this chapter when you guys told me about this way back when. I remember reading a portion of this, and I believe it was during a live stream when I did it. I think it was either Kitty or CDs who told me about this. Meanwhile, Jin waded in among the hunters and calmly cut into their vital spots one at a time.
Effect. Paralysis has been activated. Effect. Bleeding has been activated. Effect. Paralysis has been activated.
The special effects of the poison fang of Kasaka continued to activate, and the hunters all fell into a quagmire of confusion.
I can't move my body! Ah!
Magic? Was that magic? You son of a...
Effect. Bleeding has been activated. Effect. Paralysis has been activated. Effect. Paralysis has been activated.
What the heck is this guy's real identity? Ah!
Screams resounded out without a break from here and there. 5 hunters surrounding Jin all crumpled down to the floor in no time at all. Plop. Plop.
The number of enemies left to kill, 1. The number of killed enemies, 7.
Jin shifted his gaze over to the last remaining survivor. And that was none other than the bearded man Huang Dong-suk. He discarded his shield as an expression of determination formed on his face. He then loudly roared out,
Roar!
Dong-suk kicked the ground and rushed forward. Thump, 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 thump. His mind raced as he ran forward. He was a tanker and was considered one of the top even within the C rank. His opponent most likely was a damage dealer. Although that man seemed to be very agile, judged from his quick movements, there was no way he'd possess enough power to penetrate past Hwang Dong-suk's reinforcement skill.
You can't fatally wound me with a measly little dagger!
The one to be crushed when they collide would be Sung Jin-woo instead. Their distance closed up in the blink of an eye, and Dong-suk tackled with his shoulder.
Reinforce!
But then, his entire world seemed to spin around, and before he realized how, he was staring at the ceiling of the dungeon.
Slam!
His brain shook hard, and a strong impact force was transmitted into his entire body. He wanted to get up, but his body didn't listen to his commands. Dong-suk tried very hard, but eventually gave up and laid sprawled on the ground. He coughed out a mouthful of blood.
Did he throw me to the floor?
Did Hwang Dong-suk really lose in the contest of strength? In a battle of physical strength?
How could a measly ranky?
He was now so sure that something had gone terribly awry somewhere. I know where. 5 rank Cs and 3 rank Ds were knocked out in the blink of an eye. There was no way this bastard was a rank E. Jin stood next to Hwang Dong-suk. The bearded man couldn't even properly move his body. His fate was quite obvious now. If this was a sports match or a spar, then this battle would have ended right here. Too bad for the bearded man, though. Jin wasn't planning to stop there.
Wait a minute!
Dong-suk raised his hand first.
Let me go. If you want money, I'll give it to you, as long as you spare me.
3 times. Jin's voice remained cold. Aren't you a bit shameless, asking to be spared by someone you tried to kill 3 times already? First, by blocking the exit of the boss room. Second, ordering Yu Jin-oh to kill him. And finally, Jo Gyu-hwan's magic. Dong-suk tried to kill Jin these 3 times, even after excluding the battle just now. Give and take. When he returned alive from the underground temple, Jin resolved himself to return as much as he had received, whether it was kindness or hostility. He'd repay the acts of ill intent with an equal amount of malice. There would be no room for negotiation. Realizing that begging for his life wouldn't work, Dong-suk's eyes shot wide open and foam bubbled around his mouth.
You think you'll be okay after you laid your hands on me like this? Do you have any idea who my younger brother is?
Shatter. Dong-suk could no longer continue with his words after his neck was broken. The whites of the bearded man's eyes were showing now.
Ta-ding! The number of enemies left to kill, 0. The number of killed enemies, 8.
Finally, this quest had come to an end. Whew. Jin spat out a long sigh containing a myriad of emotions and lifted his hand away from Dong-suk's head. His gaze then stopped on his hands. He might have one-sidedly bulldozed past his opponents, but for someone who had fought to the death against 8 other people, his hands remained remarkably steady. Is it okay to be like this? Jin placed his hand on his chest and felt for his beating heart. His heart was beating as calmly as if he had been taking a stroll. Mihai, good to see you. What if, for the first time ever, had to grab a package from the front door, Don't worry, I'll cut this out in post. His heart was beating as calmly as if he had been taking a stroll. What if? For the first time ever, he began to think that seeing the system wasn't the only change taking place within him after he returned alive from the underground temple. However, his musings had to be kept brief. Soon the familiar beep entered his mind.
Ting! You have completed the emergency quest Kill All the Enemies. Completion rewards are now available.
Oh, Ramil, yeah, by all means, watch this later. Please get some sleep. Prioritize your health over watching anything I do, please. And I say this to everybody else. Please prioritize your health. I am not that important. I really am not. Just take care of yourself. This stuff will be available for you later.
Completion rewards are now available. Would you like to confirm the rewards? Yes or no?
He was half expecting this to happen, and sure enough, he now had received rewards. Jin didn't even hesitate and chose yes. Confirm.
Cling! The following rewards are available. Reward 1, full recovery of the current physical condition. Reward 2, 10 additional stat points. Reward 3, skill, intimidation.
Not only 10 points, but even a skill too? Jin's eyes widened from the huge amount of available rewards. All those stat points were one thing, but this new skill stole away almost all of his attention. If I didn't possess the dash skill when fighting that spider. The only reason why he managed to hunt the boss down was because of dash. There was no need to mention how important a skill was during a battle. It was not for nothing that a rune stone, with which a person could learn a brand new skill, cost several hundreds of millions of won. Jin immediately checked the skill called Intimidation out. Show me the third reward.
Cling! Skill, intimidation, level 1. Active skill. Mana required to activate 100. Can render a designated target in a state of fear for 1 minute by using your powerful aura. Multiple targets can be affected. Effect. Fear. All stats, negative 50%.
Although it was only active for a short time, it was still a rare skill that could decrease the opponent's stats by a substantial amount. Of course, exactly like other effects, if the opponent's resistance was high enough, it would fail to activate. But if it did work, then Jin thought that taking care of his enemies, regardless of who it was, would become easy as pie. What are you guys talking about down there? I will watch the rest of the morning as we wish you all a good night. Good night, Mihai. Good morning. Y'all get some sleep, please. Please do. Please do. I love the fact that you guys show up for the stuff that I'm doing, but do not compromise your own health and sleep for me. Please don't. Of course, exactly like other effects, if the opponent's resistance was high enough, it would fail to activate. But if it did work, then Jinwoo thought that taking care of his enemies, regardless of who it was, would become as easy as pie. And since it could be used against multiple opponents, the scope of this skill's usefulness seemed limitless. It's really good, isn't it? The rewards were just as good as the potential penalty was as bad. Hang on a sec. Now that I think about it, it's not like that, is it? After all, his life was at stake here. And what was that all? And was that all? Sorry, I read that wrong. Jin took a look around him. He frowned deeply after taking in the gruesome sight. He had witnessed enough deaths of other hunters, but even then, he'd never really get used to looking at the corpses of other people. This was what this quest asked of him, though. But for a quest that asked for many lives as its completion requirement, the rewards handed out felt rather cheap and not quite enough. Well, even if it weren't for the quest, he'd still have to fight against Won Dong-suk and his crew in the end, but still. And they say a man's greed knows no bounds. Jin shook his head wearily. It was then the cave shook around once more. Remember. The tremor had become stronger than before. It was now the time to get out of the dungeon. But before he could do that, there was something else he needed to take care of first. And that happened to be you, Jin-O. Jin's gaze drifted toward him. Jin-O had been pitifully frozen solid in his spot until then, and flinched rather grandly before hurriedly lowering his gaze to the ground. Now, what should I do with this kid? Of course, he wasn't thinking of harming Jin-O. There was no need to, nor was there a reason to do so either. However, if the events of this place got leaked out to the rest of the world, then there was a good chance that his life would become inconvenienced in a variety of ways. So, I guess I should make sure he doesn't talk, huh? Just as he thought that course of action would be for the best, Jin-O rapidly ran towards him, knelt down, and bowed his head.
Young Nim, please spare me!
Suddenly, Jin felt that following conversation should unfold a lot more smoothly than his initial expectation. Jin-O was shaking like a wet dog. His complexion, why was I trying to say expression? His complexion was pale as well. Well, 8 people died in the blink of an eye right in front of his eyes, right in front of his face. So that was par for the course, really. One of the most important tools in dealing with people was this: the fear. So Jin decided to use this situation to his advantage. Why should I? Jin thought that he heard the sound of Jin-O's heart falling to the floor just now. His guilty conscience then asked, was that too much? His guilty conscience that asked, was that too much, only lasted for a second, though.
If you want money, I can speak to my father and...
Who do you think I am? Jin's expression crumpled unpleasantly. Sure, he did grow up impoverished. Sorry, I don't say that word all that often. Sure, he did grow up impoverished, but that didn't mean he was corrupt enough to hold a person's life hostage and extort money that way. Wouldn't he be no different from Hwang Dong-suk if he did that?
I'm really sorry.
If it weren't for Jin-O's current state being absolutely terrified, Jin would have smacked the back of the kid's head or something by now. He was holding back only because it looked like Jin-O might keel over from a heart attack if he really did that. Confirming how displeased Jin's expression was, Jin-O nervously swallowed some dried saliva. That's 4. Now that I think about it... Oh wait, this is Jin-O speaking.
Now that I think about it, even back when Hwang Dong-suk offered him money, could he have abandoned all material desires and now only walks the path of bloodshed and murder?
Jin's image inside Jin-O's head was being solidified into an even weirder direction. However, it was too early to draw a conclusion yet.
If that was the case, then why did young Nim extract those magic crystals?
Not too long ago, Jin personally went and extracted all those magic stones, even going so far to dig through the spider's entrails. It's dry saliva, though, but he's still swallowing, though. If swallowed saliva, it's in the same sentence. It doesn't matter if there's a few words in it. It's still the same thing. It's 4. Not too long ago, Jinu personally went and extracted all those magic stones, even going so far to dig through the spider's entrails. Sure, it was used in a variety of ways, such as a source of high-density energy, as a raw material in manufacturing magic tools, etc., but to a hunter, a magic crystal was simply another word for money. Jino's mind spun at a quicker pace.
So, that's how it was!
Those crystals were the prize of blood. They were the desired prize he earned through staining his hands with blood, and that was why he didn't mind digging through the stomach of a dead monster. He'd not show a hint of mercy to those enemies who tried to harm him, but he was also the practitioner of the way of the blood, meaning he did not want anything to do with the monetary gain that he hadn't earned with his own hands.
And I tried to buy his benevolence with money, so of course he'd get ticked off at me.
In that case, what Jinno needed here wasn't father's money, but the deserved profit that could be earned if he managed to walk out of here alive. When he sneaked a glance, Jin's expression was still distorted somewhat. Jinno quickly continued on with his words.
Young Nim, if you spare me, then I'll hand over all the profit earned in this dungeon to you.
As expected, Jin immediately displayed his interest.
Please, think about it, young Nim. If you monopolize the profit meant for 10 people after 9 others are killed, others would definitely start questioning you.
From Jinno's perspective, Jin was, without a doubt, a fake registrant. Not only that, a highly skilled fake registrant who enjoyed murdering people. Obviously, he'd not want the attention of other folks landing on him. So what?
On the flip side, if we both walk out of here alive, then according to the contract, all the magic crystals from this dungeon belongs to me, even if all the other teammates had died. Since you don't get a share in the first place, no one would suspect you.
Of course, there was no way that Jinno would be suspected of foul play here. Well, his father owned one of the country's top-ranked companies, after all. The potential profit he'd earned from selling off the magic crystals would be like pocket change to him.
This money is something young Nim totally deserves. I mean, this is your deserved reward for saving me and getting rid of Huang Dong-suk and his lackeys. Wouldn't you agree?
And that is the end of chapter 23. Onwards to chapter 24. Jinno emphasized his words. Deserved reward for some reason. Yeah, for sure. Certainly, that method was the safest way to dispose of the magic crystals. These crystals no longer had any owners. No matter how avaricious Huang Dong-suk was, he still couldn't take them to his grave. That left just one person, Yu Jinno, as the sole claimant to the rights of these crystals. However, such a guy was saying that he'd voluntarily offer them up. Jin didn't want anything to do with them if they were to be taken away forcibly. But there's no reason for me to refuse things that are willingly entering my pockets, no? Without his help, Jinno would have either have been killed by now or get dragged around as a hostage instead. When looked at that way, the claims of them being deserved reward made more sense. Seeing that Jin's expression lightened up, Jinno was now sure of his guesses being on the money.
As I thought, the magic crystals are the deserved reward of blood for hunting down Huang Dong-suk and his gang, so he's not going to say no here.
The meaning of the word deserved, as imagined by these two men, had what you'd call a significant difference, but they had no way of knowing that. Okay. As soon as Jin agreed, Jinno's face brightened up in an instant. Heck, Jinno was even feeling a bit awestruck by how steadfast Jin was with his personal beliefs. However, Jin's face became emotionless next. However, how do I trust you? Jin had recalled his initial goal once more. He wasn't trying to scare the kid so he could line his pockets in the first place. No, he started this intimidation antics so he could avoid being inconvenienced later down the line.
How can I betray you, young Nim, who saved my neck multiple times already?
You could ignore our promise and just yap on to anyone you meet, no? Actually, it wouldn't be too big of a hassle if the kid did that. Killing Huang Dong-suk and his goons were 100% acts of self-defense, after all. There were 8 of them, not to mention they were fully armed as well. Heck, they even attacked first with a powerful magic spell, too. Laws had changed ever since the emergence of the hunters, so Jin knew that he'd walk away scot-free only with that much justification. Jin wanted to let things die down quietly in this manner. and Eugene's help would be needed to facilitate that. There might be a slight problem with how he went about asking for that help, but as far as the end result was concerned, this was the best method available. So, speak up. Jin stared at the other guy with eyes that demanded answers. Jin-O formed a determined, dignified expression. I will never do anything so cowardly, young Nim, especially for someone who has saved my life. Hang on a minute. Jin thought that he had seen those determined eyes from somewhere, before realizing that they were rather similar back when Jin-O refused the suggestion of Hwang Dong-suk to become their accomplice not too long ago. This kid, he's being serious. The give and take. When his life was hanging in the balance, Jin-O chose to stand with Jin. He trusted Jin and tried to go up against 8 other hunters. That was why Jin decided to trust Jin-O, at least once. Of course, not right away, and not quite like this. Maybe after planting the fear of God into the kid first. Jin reached down and picked up Hwang Dong-suk's discarded shield. The back of my head is still aching from Hwang Dong-suk's sneak attack, you know. Jin pretended to study the shield from this way and that before powerfully flinging it toward the wall of the cave. Clang! Kaboom! More than half of the shield got buried deep inside that wall. Cold sweat drops dripped down Jin-O's face as he nervously swallowed his saliva. That's 5. I hope that my Dong-sung isn't going to disappoint me. But of course, young Nim. It happened then. The dungeon began shaking much harder this time. Rumble. Their time was clearly running out. Jin never held any thoughts of harming Jin-O from the get-go, so he figured that this much would be enough. So he ordered Jin-O, collect all the magic crystals. We're leaving. Thank you very much, young Nim. Jin-O stood back up and bowed his waist 90 degrees. I do believe that's a coming to Jesus talk and warning. That is a be prepared to see Jesus type talk. It really is. Jin-O stood back up and bowed his waist 90 degrees. A smile found its way back onto his face, too. While Jin-O went around to fill up the bag, Jin began rummaging through Hwang Dong-suk's pockets. I gotta get paid what's mine, too. He was promised 2 million won for the day's work, and he couldn't afford to let a single cent slip by. Hwang Dong-suk's wallet was filled with lots of 50,000 won bills. When he counted, there were 45 of them. Just over 2 million, in other words. The bearded man promised to pay in cash as soon as the raid was over, so he must have had them ready just in case. Because, well, he wouldn't have been able to cut the tail all the time. Thanks for the pay. Jin said the words of thanks to no one in particular and left the boss room first. Jin-O was almost finished packing up the magic crystals, but then belatedly noticed that Jin had disappeared and hurriedly began searching for him. Young Nim! All he found were the rapidly cooling corpses of the hunters that lost their lives to Jin. Jin-O and his deathly pale complexion hurriedly chased after Jin as if he was scared of being alone. The agent from the association's investigation department swiftly arrived at the location of the gate. The procedure to follow where there were casualties during a raid were rather simple. The remaining survivors only had to report the matter to the association and let the investigators do their job. That was all. The investigator for today was a strict-looking auntie.
And your names are?
It's Sung Jin-O. My name is Jin-O, ma'am. Hunters dying inside dungeons happen pretty much every single day, so this procedure was more like a formality at this point. To be more precise, it was now more to do with record-keeping, actually. That was, if there were nothing to be suspicious about.
So, every rank C hunter in the raid team was killed, yet how did one rank D and one rank E manage to escape unhurt?
The investigator questioned the duo while adjusting her glasses. Her glaring eyes narrowed to a slit. A lot of eyes narrow to slits in this story, isn't it?
Now, normally, it'd be the weakest hunter in the team to die first. Most of the time. Yet,
She intensely scrutinized the two men before discovering something particular and raised her voice.
oh my gosh!
Her eyes began sparkling as she approached closer.
Isn't that the longsword Callian? That's been launched recently by the Maya Company? Oh my gosh, isn't this one of the Royal Series shields crafted by the one and only master craftsman Grados?
Random funny story, my nanny always said, you better listen to my talks or I'm gonna introduce you to the man himself on a non-refundable trip. That's funny. That's really funny.
Oh my gosh, isn't this one of the Royal Series shields crafted by the one and only master of craftsman Grados?
Jino's face brightened immediately. You seem to be well versed in weapons, ma'am.
Yeah, it's nothing to feel proud about, really. Now it's only on the level of browsing through the catalogs every now and then.
The price of the longsword was around 700 million won, while the shield was around 500 million, 620,000 and 443,000 respectively. Well, 43 US dollars respectively. These powerful armaments were crafted with magic crystals costing well over hundreds of millions of won, as well as other expensive materials, and they were capable of boosting the abilities of a rank D hunter past that of a rank C. With this revelation, the agent began imagining the events that had taken place inside the dungeon.
With these types of armaments,
A lone rank D hunter managing to hunt down the boss monster seemed rather feasible now, even when considering that all the rank C hunters had been annihilated along the way. That laugh? Like that laugh, did you? Like that laugh, did you? You did ya? I'm messing with you, I'm sorry.
and that rank E probably hid in a corner somewhere and barely saved his life.
Of course, the reality was opposite of that, but in any case, she came to a conclusion. The odds of a man with enough financial wherewithal to purchase such armaments stabbing his comrades in the back for a handful of magic crystals were low at best. On top of that, it was also impossible for a rank E to do anything to several rank C hunters too, so the deaths of Huang Dong-suk and 7 others could only be chalked up to an unfortunate accident.
I understand what happened now.
The investigator closed the case file with a satisfied face.
The investigation will conclude with this, so you may go home now. I'm sure it had been a difficult day so far, so thank you for taking the time out to aid us with the investigation. Thank you for your hard work.
Jin said goodbyes on behalf of both men. The investigator and her car... he says, thank you for your hard work. Jin said goodbyes on behalf of both men. The investigator and her car left just as quickly as they had arrived. You also worked hard, young Nim. Jino bent his waist 90 degrees once more. Even after they had exited the gate, Jino's overly polite attitude didn't change. He must have been pretty darn scared even now. Jin inwardly clicked his tongue. Yeah, you too. Well, I haven't done much anyway. You did most of the work, young Nim. Oh, here are your magic crystals. Jino very courteously handed the bag over to the Jin with 2 hands. And indeed, the bag was filled to the brim with magic crystals. The highest price a magic crystal from a rank C gate could fetch was around 10 million won. Even the smallest one fetched several millions. Jin's eyes scanned the number of crystals and he inwardly cried out in elation. Just how much will these? Just how much will these? He tried so hard to suppress a grin from breaking out on his face. It was then a drop of water suddenly fell inside the bag. Splash! Sploosh! Jin raised his head. They were raindrops falling from the sky. Raindrops keep falling on my head. Don't worry, I won't sing anymore. They were raindrops falling from the sky that had been gradually getting darker as the afternoon rolled by. It was a good thing. It was a good thing, sending her off with an umbrella. Jin formed a subtle smile while thinking about his little sister. Later in the evening, Jin summoned his status window as soon as he arrived back home. Stats. Stats. Strength 53, Stamina 30, Agility 38, Intelligence 30, Perception 32. Available points to distribute 10. The 10 points he got as a reward from the emergency quest still remained waiting. His entire body was itching from the desire to spend them. If he wanted to earn them through daily quests, then he'd have to spend the next 3 days and still had to find one more point from somewhere, and if he wanted to earn them through leveling up, then he had to raise it by 2. The priority is with agility, then perception next. He spent 7 points on agility, and the rest 3 on perception. Stats: Strength 53, Stamina 30, Agility 45, Intelligence 30, Perception 35. Available points to distribute 0. Okay. His stat values looked more even now. Agility had almost caught up with strength, and perception was already at 35. Once agility's values got closer to strength, he was planning to increase stamina next. Leaving alone the stat of intelligence and its unknown uses for the time being, he wanted to raise all of his other stats as uniformly as possible. Should I check out today's results? Name: Sung Jinu, level 21. Class: None. Title: Slaughterer of Wolves. HP: 2600. MP: 390. Tiredness: 0. Stats: Strength 53, Stamina 30, Agility 45, Intelligence 30, Perception 35. Available points to distribute 0. Skills: Passive skills: Unknown level max, Tenacity level 1, Active skills: Dash level 1, Intimidation level 1. The level that had risen up by 3 in the new skilled Intimidation caught his attention the most, and his stats also had received a healthy boost from the 10 extra points. These alone would qualify today's earning as quite spectacular, but there were more, weren't there? 2 million won I got for today's work, and all those magic crystals filling up the bag as well. Jin counted the number of the crystals once more. 11 from the spider, and 38 from Huangdong Suk and his lackeys. In total, 49 of them. If he asked 5 million for each, he'd still earn well over 200 million won. 200 mil from a single day's hunt. The profit that should have been shared by 10 people, no, 9, had been swallowed up by him, so the amount had no choice but to balloon up. This was the same thing as the unexpected kiss of Lady Luck landing squarely on his cheeks. All I have to do now is to sell these things. Selling magic crystals wasn't difficult. Since the demand was so high, when he put them up for sale, they would all sell out pretty quickly. The question was, though, where he should sell these. There were several cases of direct trading between individuals, and guilds and corporations also bought them in large quantities as well. For his case, since there were so many of them, he figured it'd be for the better to seek out the help of professionals, rather than try his hands on dealing with individuals or sell them online. Can't I just sell them to a store or something? It would be so much more convenient for him if the store bought his crystals at their retail value, as it would with the Japtem. While thinking this and that, Jin pushed the bag full of magic crystals to the corner of the room. And then he abruptly recalled one last fruit of today's labor. Right, the system said I can start buying stuff from the store. Jin immediately summoned the store. Although it wasn't much, all the gold he had saved up from the Hapjeong Station's instant dungeon still waited for their turn inside his inventory until now. Buy. Accompanied by the familiar beep, the list of purchasable items popped up in his view, and they continued to do so quite literally without an end. Everything from cheap potions and trinkets all the way up to absurdly expensive defensive items and eye-catching weapons could be found here. There were so many items that could be bought with gold. It was pretty obvious, but the more expensive an item was, the better its options got. One of the best items available even cost as much as 10 billion gold. Whoa, 10 billion, is it? His current gold was just over 112,000. It was way too short to buy anything truly useful, but there was no need for him to fret here. Why? Because he had plenty of time on hand. I can buy any of these, as long as I have enough gold, right? Jin hummed to himself and continued to browse through the list of really expensive items. There was one more reason to seek out instant dungeons now. Already, he couldn't wait to receive the prize of the daily quest for tomorrow, the random box. And that is the end of chapter 24. Onwards to chapter 25. Once we get done with this chapter, I'll take a short break. Don't worry. It'll be at least like a couple of minutes or so, just so I can stretch and breathe and take a drink. And then we'll get back to the remaining chapters. Chapter 25. Part 11. Arrangement. 3 days passed by since the incident of the C-ranked gate. Jinna came home early from school as it was Saturday today. As soon as entering the apartment, she began sniffing the air and hurriedly removed her shoes.
Opa, what's going on here? Did you order fried chicken?
Yeah, I ordered some takeaway to make sure it'd get here just in time for you.
Wow, really?
Jin beckoned her while sitting by the dining table, causing Jinna's eyes to open wider. She immediately ran towards him.
Hiya, what's going on here? You're a real Scrooge, too. Did something good happen lately?
Hey now, put down your school bag first, will you? Why is a girl so hot-headed?
It's fine. This bag ain't that heavy, you know.
And she was complaining not too long ago about her bag being too heavy and that she didn't want to carry an umbrella around. Jin tissed, but couldn't really hide the smile creeping up on his face. Asking me if there was anything good happening lately? Of course there was. The family's bank balance had swelled up from 800,000 won all the way to 180,300,000 earlier today. Just under 160,000 US dollars. 180 million was from the sale of the magic crystals, and 500 grand was used for the month's rent. Still, 180 million. Just one raid and he was able to get his hands on an absurd amount of money, totaling 180 million. He had been one for a while now, but this was the first time he felt like a real hunter. Well, this was the era where a casual mention of hunters instantly brought up the images of wealth, so that couldn't be helped. Also, the face of the employee at the Magic Crystal Exchange when Jin went there with his stash was still so vivid in his memories, too.
Did you hunt all these monsters?
Things happened and so it's something like that.
Holy moly, how incredible!
49 C-rank magic crystals. The initial estimated price for the whole lot was just over 300 million won. But who knew that taxation would be so heartless? I gotta pay 40% as tax?
Yes, when an individual is selling the crystals, 40% is taken as tax. However, when a guild is selling them, it's only 10%.
Is there a reason why there's a reduction in tax for the guilds?
Well, unlike freelancers and their teams, guilds must cooperate without question when they are ordered to mobilize, you see?
Indeed. When he searched through his memories, he remembered hearing about both the agents from the monitoring division of the association and the White Tiger Guild coming to the location of the dual dungeon incident. Because they were receiving special treatments, guilds had to cooperate with the government and the association when they asked for help. The high tax rates caused Jin to ponder his choices for a little bit.
Should I, hold on to the crystals and sell them off after I...
Should I hold on to the crystals and sell them off after I enter a guild? But he made up his mind soon afterwards. By the time he entered a guild and started working for them, the main objects of conquest would be gates rated A and B. The magic crystals coming out from those gates would be incomparable would incomparably be more valuable than those from a gate-ranked C. And right now, he needed every cent he could get his hands. Besides, I can't just sign on with any old guild out there just to decrease tax, now can I? Okay, fine. I will sell them. That's how he got his hands on 180 million. Just as Jenna had implied with her question, the chicken and beer meal was to celebrate the big earnings sitting pretty in the family bank account right at this moment.
Thank you for this meal.
Jenna sneakily reached toward the beer can, but then Jin's finger powerfully flicked her forehead.
Ouch!
For you, this. He then placed a can of cola in front of her.
I was only joking, you know.
Not minding Jenna and her hands busily rubbing her reddened forehead, Jin popped the lid open on the freshly cold can of beer and poured the contents down his throat. But then, this happened.
Tring!
Jin couldn't help but react nervously when he heard the familiar beep. Why a system message all of a sudden?
Harmful substances had been detected. Effects of buff detox will now commence. 3, 2, 1. Detoxification has been completed. You detoxed harmful substances. Are you talking about...
You detox harmful substances? Are you talking about alcohol? Jin drank up the remaining beer in the can and popped open another just to be sure.
Harmful substances have been detected. Effects of buff detox will now commence. 3, 2, 1. Detoxification has been completed.
And the exact same messages appeared again. He had drank up 2 cans of beer in one go, but he couldn't feel one hint of drunkenness come over. Whatever this buff thing was, it was definitely working as intended. What's this? Jin tilted his head. He had yet to meet a single hunter capable of throwing buffs around. Most of the hunters possessed such specialized skill sets all worked for large guilds. As he was affiliated with the association, there hadn't been a single opportunity for him to meet one so far. Even if someone sneaked a buff on me, surely the system would have notified me of it. In that case, there could only be 2 possibilities. Either he received the buff while he was unconscious, or got it before the system was active. Personally, he was more inclined toward the latter.
Oppa, what's wrong? Is it indigestion? You should have been more careful, you know.
When Jin's expression became serious, Jenna asked him with a worried voice. Nah, it's just that I remembered something pretty urgent, that's all. Eat without me while I take care of this, okay? Jin headed back into his room. He then began rummaging through every nook and cranny of his memories, trying to figure out if he had missed anything, even if it was small. Suddenly, he recalled something. Every quest has rewards, even penalty quests. But there was one quest that every quest has rewards, even penalty quests. But there was one quest that I never got around to confirming the rewards, no? Jin hurriedly opened the mailbox. At the time, he had no clue what the system was nor what rewards could mean, so glossed over them. But he definitely remembered reading the message that said he had met the conditions to clear the quest. His heart began beating faster and faster. Jin eventually discovered the messages sitting right at the bottom of the mailbox.
Congratulations on becoming a player.
Jin's voice trembled as he spoke softly. Confirm.
Tring! This system will support the growth of the player. Failing to comply with the system's instructions will result in potential penalties. Your rewards have been delivered.
As he thought, there were the mentions of rewards. The voice he heard back inside the underground temple clearly said these words.
Completion requirements for the secret quests, The Courage of the Powerless, has been met.
A secret quest or not, it was still a quest, wasn't it? However, he hadn't checked what kind of rewards he had received until now. Back then, he thought that it was all a hallucination, didn't he?
Will result in potential penalties. Your rewards have been delivered. Would you like to confirm your rewards? Yes or no?
Yes.
Ding!
Rewards.
Rewards for the secret quest, The Courage of the Powerless. The blessings from the Grand Sorcerer Candiaru. The Grand Sorcerer Candiaru has been deeply moved by your courage and has gifted you with a special spell. When accompanied by the blessings of Candiaru, you'll get to enjoy a healthy and fulfilling life every day. Let there be a bright future laying in wait for the challenger. One-time effect, Will to recover. All your damaged body parts will be recovered to their original state. Continuous effect, good health and long life. You'll be immune to all types of diseases, poisonous substances, as well as all forms of status debuffs. During sleep, your recovery rate will increase exponentially.
Only now, puzzle pieces fell to their places. That's why my leg was. It was all due to the quest reward that his sliced-off leg had reverted back to how it was before. Same thing for why he couldn't get drunk from a couple of cans of beer. Hang on. I'm immune to all types of poison, too? Jin's eyes abruptly shot open real wide. If that was the case, then could it be? Jin hurriedly extracted a certain item from his inventory.
Item, Poison Sac of Kasaka. Rarity A. Type, Medicine.
A
pouch containing the refined poison of the Kasaka can be found very rarely when hunting Kasakas. Drinking this poison will give you strong skin, but the toxicity will permanently damage your muscles. Effect, the Iron Scales of Kasaka. 20% reduction in physical damage. Side effect, damaged muscles. Strength, -35.
My muscles are supposed to get damaged because of the detox, but wouldn't this detox buff resist that? There was only one way to find out. Jin squeezed his eyes shut and drank the liquid contained within the pouch. Sticky, yucky liquid slid down his throat. The taste was oily and terrible, but he endured it. And they say what's good for you usually tastes bitter. When he finished drinking all of the poison liquid, messages popped up in his view.
Harmful substances has been detected. Effects of buff. Detox will now commence. 3, 2, 1. Detoxification has been completed. Side effect, damaged muscles has been nullified.
Yes! Jin clenched his fists real tightly. Still, he couldn't celebrate just yet, so he quickly summoned his status window. Stats: Strength 53, Stamina 30, Agility 53, Intelligence 30, Perception 36. Available points to distribute 0. Reduction in physical damage 20%. As he expected, there was no decrease in his strength stat. It still remained as 53 points. And then he saw the new stat called Reduction in Physical Damage, too. Sure, it might be limited in the category, but it still was a marvelous stat that reduced all physical damage by 20%. Nice! Just as Jin began celebrating the emergence of this new stat, Jinna called out to him from the living room.
Alpa, you know a guy called Eugenio? He's looking for you.
No way. He can't be the same Eugenio. Jin quickly went to the living room and snatched the phone's receiver off his little sister. You know, I can't help but imagine the architect throwing a fit while he did that. I can only imagine. Jin quickly went to the living room and snatched the phone's receiver off his little sister. Hello?
Young Nim, it's me, Eugenio.
Really now? The voice coming from the other side sounded way too familiar. How did you get this number?
There was a person I know working for the association, you see. You didn't want to answer your smartphone, so I had no choice but to call you at home like this.
Details only.
Ah, oops, my bad, young Nim, but it's not something we can discuss over the phone. May we meet up somewhere so I can tell you in person?
Jin tilted his head slightly. He still wants to meet me after going through such an ordeal?
Young Nim,
I really, really gotta ask you for this favor. Please. What a weird kid this guy was. Jin eventually agreed to spare 1 hour after Jino earnestly pleaded with him. The meeting place was a franchise cafe located not too far from Jin's home. Even though it was a weekday, there were quite a few people inside the cafe. Perhaps because they chose to meet right after the lunch hour. Young Nim, over here! Jino greeted him rather enthusiastically. Before entering the cafe, Jin focused his perception to the max, but he couldn't sense any other hunters inside the shop. At the bare minimum, this meeting wasn't for the purpose of revenge, it seemed. Although Jin couldn't really remember doing anything that warranted such an ill will toward him and requiring a swift retribution. Jin sat down on the other side of the table. Didn't think we'd meet again. There was a half-eaten ice cream on top of the table belonging to Jino. Jino spoke as he stood up. What would you like to order? Should I go and get you some coffee? No, it's fine. Jino looked a bit crestfallen for some reason as he sat back down. Jin opened his mouth first. So, what do you want? It was then. I'm telling you, this guy did it for real back then. It was so crazy, really. Jin shifted his gaze over to his side. The table next to his was occupied by 3 burly students with rather thuggish faces hailing from some local athletic club or the other, and they were busy chatting to 3 girls. Jin tried to get back to his own conversation. As I was saying, what do you...
And when did I ever do that? Will you listen to this jerk busy inventing rubbish just because we're in front of girls?
Want from me?
But you said it, didn't you? Wow, should I show you the pics, man? Should I, release the evidence to the rest of the world or something?
The voices of the male students got louder and louder, and the laughter of the girls was just as loud as well. When the noise became too loud to carry on his own conversation, Jin was left with no choice but to stand up and silently walk over to the table next to his. The eyes of the male students all focused on Jin. Will you please keep it down? There are other people in here. One of the male students scratched the back of his head and pretended to apologize a couple of times. Yes, we'll keep it down. Very sorry about this. Girls began giggling hoarsely from that sight. Jin quietly stared at them for a while before turning around. But when he did, something flew in and tapped him on the back of the head. A rolled-up paper serviette fell to the floor.
Hey, you... Hey, you shouldn't do that.
Male students began guffawing really hard, while girls pretended to...
Hey, you shouldn't do that.
Male students began guffawing really hard, while girls pretended to scold the boys, even though mocking grins formed on their faces. Witnessing this scene, Jino's expression gradually froze up.
Young Nim?
Jin picked up one of the unused spoons next to Jino's ice cream and walked over to the counter.
Oh, look, he's going to tell his mommy. Mommy, they're making noise. Stop them, please.
In the meantime, those kids kept running their mouths off. Jin asked the nervous-looking female employee behind the counter with a deadpan face. How much for this spoon?
My apologies, dear customer. We don't sell spoons separately, you see.
It's not more than 10,000 won, yes?
Pardon? I guess so.
Jin placed a 10,000 won bill on the counter and turned around.
Dear customer? Excuse me, customer?
Jin ignored the calls of the female employee and headed straight to the table where the male students from some athletic club were. When they noticed that Jin was displaying a suspicious behavior, the 3 students slowly stood up from their seats. What do you want now? What? The attention of everyone in the cafe, everyone inside the cafe was now focused on this table. Jin showed the students his spoon. Hmm? Just as question marks floated on the expressions of these hapless kids, Jin began squashing the spoon in his hands, and the poor thing easily lost its shape right in front of their eyes. The complexions of the male students grew paler and paler. Jin then placed the spoon on their table, but what was left there could no longer be called a spoon anymore. No, it was just a piece of folded metal, roughly shaped like a spoon. The male students nervously swallowed their saliva. 5! 5. That's 5 now.
That's not a human strength. This guy, he's a hunter.
The male students signaled to each other before the kid who threw the serviette at him bowed and apologized for real.
I'm really sorry.
The rest of his friends then started apologizing as well.
I'm sorry. It was our fault. Forgive us.
The male students bowed several times with pale complexions before making their hasty retreat from the cafe while dragging the girls out as well.
Woo!
The customers surrounding that noisy table sent gazes filled with appreciation towards Jin. Meanwhile, Jin returned to his seat and settled back down. Jino's eyes sparkled as he spoke up.
As expected of you, young Nim.
Enough. Jin got back on topic at hand. Why did you ask me for a meeting?
Well, young Nim, I gave this matter a lot of thought. I mean, lots and lots of thought, you know? But I think I really, seriously must ask you.
Jin tilted his head. What are you asking about now?
Young Nim, actually...
Jino's face reddened as if he was embarrassed about something, before he summoned up his courage and spoke up.
Actually, I was thinking of forming my own team.
Jin didn't even hesitate 1 second and replied, I'm not interested. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of chapter 25. We have reached the halfway mark. I'm going to take a short break before we get started with chapter 26 and the remaining chapters. We are almost done, everybody. We're almost done. Hang in there. We're making good time. But now I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to just stretch, walk around my room a little bit, drink some more, and then we'll continue on with chapter 26. Don't worry, it won't be too long. All right, break over. Time to bring it on home. Chapter 26. Part 1. Transaction. Where is this part 1 or part 12? Part 1. Transaction. Jino's expression became dumbfounded.
Already, young Nim?
I don't need to hear the rest to figure it out. Jin was quite decisive in saying no. This wasn't because he didn't like Jino or something like that. Although he seemed a bit off in the head, his attitude became courteous and he came across as someone who'd always keep his word. He was quite different from the other scions of wealthy families and owners often seen in mass media. However, Jin was not interested in becoming a playmate of the son of a wealthy family during the boy's hunter phase. Hello, High Dragon, good to see you. We are on chapter 26, going all the way to 30, and then I'll call it a session for today. However, Jin was not interested in becoming a playmate of the son of a wealthy family during the boy's hunter phase. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving.
Young Nim!
Just as Jin got up to leave, Jino hurriedly reached out and held on to him.
Young Nim, only for 20. No, wait, please partner up with me for the next 19 times.
For what? To clear dungeons?
Yes, I'll definitely compensate you properly.
Jino's voice sounded rather desperate. Jin tilted his head slightly. There were 2 reasons why people became hunters. Either it was for money or for their sense of duty. But Jino didn't belong to either camp. Maybe it was possible that he thought of being a hunter was a slightly more dangerous form of extreme sports or some such. That was what Jin had been believing until now. True, he was taken aback slightly when the kid declared that he wanted to form his own private raid team, even after going through that ordeal the last time. There are all sorts of people in this world, that's for sure. It wouldn't be too strange to find a scion of a wealthy family who had become numb to the safe environment he had grown up in. However, Jino's expression seemed far too serious and determined at the moment for that kind of explanation. Could there be a different reason? Rather than the promise of proper compensation, Jin's curiosity was being tugged by the idea of raiding dungeons 19 more times. Jin's brain quickly kicked into gear. Hang on. Let's say that last time was his first raid, and when he completes 19 more raids then, could this kid be aiming for? It didn't take long for Jin to realize the truth. His expression became dumbfounded instead. Are you perhaps thinking of getting the Guildmaster license?
That's correct, Youngnim.
What a smart decision it was not to order coffee. Otherwise, he might have sprayed the bitter liquid all over the table by now while trying to drink it. You want to become a Guildmaster?
Well, the story's a bit complicated there, Youngnim.
Jino's face reddened considerably compared to before as he spoke.
Youngnim, please listen to my story.
Jin was in a slight dilemma, wondering what he should do now. But in the end, he was defeated by his curiosity. So he sat back down. Fine, I'll listen. Well, the promised hour had not ended yet, so there was that too. It wouldn't be a problem to listen to the kid's story anyways. Jino hurriedly parked his butt back down as well.
As you've correctly guessed, I want to acquire the Guildmaster license.
Acquiring that license was not that difficult, actually. You had to be a hunter who participated in at least 20 raids. As long as you met this base requirement, all you had to do was to pass a written test and you'd get the license. Of course, nobody would join the guild created by a rubbish hunter, and if a guild failed to maintain the minimum number of members, it'd be disbanded as well. Jino continued on.
It's not public knowledge yet, but actually my father is trying to establish a guild of his own.
A guild created by Eugene Construction?
Yes.
Eugene Construction was one of the biggest corporations in South Korea. It had expanded its business well beyond the fields of construction and into other sectors and had been making a killing year. Jin had heard that recently they reaped huge profit after jumping into the hunter-related businesses as well. And they want to form a guild of their own? When Jin displayed a hint of interest, Jino became excited and added more explanations.
He'd scout strong hunters and build a massive guild, and place all our hunter-related businesses' interests under it. That's his plan.
If a corporation wished to partake in hunter-related businesses, then it was a necessity to work together with a guild. Well, you need the strength of a large guild if you ever wanted to get your hands on magic crystals and remains of the monsters, or treasures such as mana stones found in gates ranked A or B. And so you wish to become a self-sustaining entity. Is that it?
That is absolutely right, Youngnim.
With the financial wherewithal of Eugene Construction, creating a guild wouldn't even pose a problem. No, the real issue would be with just who gets to run it.
My father is thinking of hiring an S-rank hunter as a guild master and placing my older brother as the vice master, and run the guild that way, but...
Jin immediately caught on to what Jino was implying here. If things were done that way, then a source of worry would be created along the way. The power of authority the guildmaster wielded was simply far too great. Even if it was the vice master who had hired the master, in case of a conflict arising between the two, there was a good chance that the latter would end up completely overtaking the entire guild. In order to prevent that, There was only one way. All you had to do was to hire a master who'd never ever betray the one who hired him or her. For instance, brothers, or even a son. And the chairman of Eugene Construction, Yu Myung-hwan, had a son called Yu Jin-oh. However, my older brother's business expertise is far too good for me to simply take over the position of the guildmaster. It was his idea to enter the field of hunter-related business, you see. We gained huge profit in that sector because of him. You're good, Kitty. Don't even worry about it, because when the stream has fully processed, I go back through it and I listen through my entire session all over again in order to put the timestamp. So don't worry about trying to mark where chapters 25 and all the other chapters are. Don't worry about that. I'll handle that. You just continue to relax and enjoy the festivities. We gained huge profit in that sector because of him. His older brother had become a successful entrepreneur by the age of 31. Compared to him, Jin-oh was only a 22-year-old university student, even if he possessed a unique plus point of being a rank D hunter. Naturally, the chairman was thinking of entrusting the guild over to the eldest son. The eldest couldn't become a master since he was not a hunter, but he still knew a lot about the hunter-related businesses and also managed to achieve great success in the sector too. Meaning, even if there was an element of a risk, the chairman would still take the chance. And you wish to change your father's mind by acquiring the master license, yeah? That's right, Youngnim. And so, Jin figured out why Jin-oh was here, trying desperately to reel him in. Even if the kid hired a high-ranked hunter and acquired the license that way, it'd be no different from buying it with cash. However, what if the kid succeeded in 20 raids with low-rank hunters such as Jin and acquired the license that way? Jin-oh would be able to persuade his father. Simply him being able to lead a group of hunters would be enough to get his approval. That was what Jin-oh was counting on. If Jin-oh became the guild master, they would get an S rank as the vice master and scout all the talented hunters. Well, others would only feel secure and join them if one or both master and vice master spots were filled by someone with powerful abilities. If this plan were to come to fruition, then completing those 20 raids was an absolute must. Young Nim, please help me. I have no one but you, Young Nim. Jin-oh bowed his head. If it weren't for Jin, the kid would have died during his very first raid, by the giant spider, or at the hands of Hwang Dong-suk. 2 times. Jin-oh needed a trustworthy ally here. I can definitely trust young Nim. He might be a cold-hearted person who would not bat an eyelid when killing his enemies, but he also happened to be a righteous man who'd not treat lightly the lives of those weaker than him. And just as important, he didn't care about getting his hands on ill-gotten gains as well. Jin was the perfect candidate. However, Jin didn't need Jin-oh. That was why he asked the kid. What do I get in return, then? Jin-oh raised his head, his expression one of joy as he quickly produced an envelope he had prepared earlier on, and a blueprint of a building came out from there. Jin took a look at it. This is the guild office building we're constructing at the moment. The expected retail price of the building is around 30 billion, but it'll definitely rise up in the future. Although the association was doing their best to manage them, there would always be that fear of monsters escaping from the dungeons. That was why the land price near the association headquarters or around large guilds always rose up higher as time went by. Well, there would be no more precious wealth than one's own life, after all. Even if it was a small guild, being near one almost guaranteed your safety. However, if it was a building occupied by a large guild, there was no need to mention it. If I become the master, then for exactly 1 year, I'll use it until the guild has been stabilized, and then hand over the deeds to you, young Nim. Of course, I'll make sure all the paperwork are in order so there won't be any unnecessary complications later down the line. A 30 billion building for raiding sea gates 19 more times. Jin smirked slightly. As long as you become the master, it'll all be worth it, is that right?
That's correct, young Nim.
On that fateful day, Jinno got to learn the valuable lesson of anything goes inside a dungeon. Hiring any old hunters could lead to him getting killed. On the flip side, hiring famous hunters would mean Jinno would lose the ability to persuade his father. However, Jin was different. He was nominally a ranky hunter, yet he was strong enough to solo a C-rank boss as well as 8 C-ranked hunters without getting hurt.
Young Nim could be at least a B-ranked, or someone far stronger than that.
With Jin around, raiding 19 C-rank gates would not pose any problems at all. So yes, if he could become the guild master, 30 billion sounded rather cheap in comparison. The only thing remaining was Jin agreeing to do so.
He wouldn't say no with this sort of terms on offer, right?
Jinno nervously studied Jin's reactions. What should I do? In the meantime, Jin was in a serious dilemma. 30 billion won. That was a large sum of money. If one considered the fact that the winning prize of the local lottery was 1.5 billion won, he'd have to get lucky 20 times in a row to earn that amount. Not only that, the value of the building would only continue to rise up. If it were any other normal hunter, they would jump in with both feet and sign up right away. That's how tempting this offer was. However, Jin was as far removed from being normal as anyone could ever hope to be. The one and only under the heavens, he was the only hunter who could grow stronger. Beneath heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. If he continued on quests and leveled up over and over again, he'd reach the S rank sooner or later, or even something surpassing that. If I can surpass the S rank, then 30 billion would be nothing. The contract fee for S-rank hunters went for several dozen billions already. No matter how famous a celebrity or a sports car was, they would never even come close to the worth of an S-rank hunter. This was the era where the number of high-ranked hunters signified the strength of a nation. As a result, the treatment of S-ranks received exceeded one's imaginations. Sorry, scratching my eye there. Considering that, what Jin needed to prioritize here was not money, but his growth. And in order to grow, it'd be more convenient to be alone. Yeah, it'd be better to minimize the risk of unexpected events. If he hunted along with other people, the experience points received could decrease too, and because of all those eyes watching him, making a move would become rather cumbersome as well. Not to forget, in order to avoid anything troublesome happening down the line, he had to threaten Jinno back then, something he didn't want to do in the first place. And finally, he'd have to match his schedule to that of the assault team from now on. The efficiency of his growth would only decrease one way or the other. I can always make money later on. Although it was unfortunate, he had to decline this offer. Just as he thought like this, hang on a sec. Suddenly, he came up with a pretty good way to catch 2 birds called money and growth with a single stone. If it's in this manner. When he finally raised his head, he spotted Jinno and his nervous face. Jin slowly opened his mouth. I only have one condition. Jinno's expression brightened up instantly.
Whatever it is, please tell me, young Nim.
I wonder, would you be able to smile even after I told you what it is? Jin smiled inwardly and spoke up. You and I, only 2 of us will enter the dungeons.
Pardon?
Jinno gasped out in pure shock.
Young Nim, if I didn't make a mistake here, then are you saying that young Nim and I, just us 2,
We'll clear C-rank gates? Only us two? You didn't make a mistake then. Jinno's face was drained of all color just then. That is the end of chapter 26. Onwards to chapter 27. Hi, Dragon. It's good to see you. How's everyone's day? Day is good. Sorry that this reaction and read-through is so late in the day. I was busy with the One Piece reflections earlier this afternoon, and then I took a break in order to eat some food, so that's the reason why this is going on as long as it has. So, sorry about it being so late. Don't worry, it probably won't happen the next time. Probably. Chapter 27. Sure, Jinnu was able to defeat the spider boss all by himself, so he'd be able to do something similar to other bosses as well. But when imagining only the two of them against the horde of monsters, just like back in that dungeon's entrance with those insects, Jin suddenly found himself unable to breathe. Jinno became completely speechless while Jin formed an expression that said, "I knew it. However, this is the best way." The best in order to catch both birds. It'd be very hard to enter any freelancer-run raid teams as a hunter ranked E. From the very first day he made up his mind to start making money in this profession, he was constantly reminded of this harsh reality. Either he had to give up entering dungeons with his qualifications, or he had to create his own raid team. However, this kid was volunteering to form one for him. Wasn't this a great opportunity, in other words?
But young Nim, you need at least 10 people if we want to enter a C-rank.
I'm pretty sure you'd find plenty of willing people who, when you'd say you'd pay them just for showing up to fill up the head count. Time to put to good use what he had learned from Hong Dong-suk then. If there were hunters who didn't want to fight with their lives on the line, but were in urgent need of cash, they would surely jump in with both feet at this golden opportunity. Jinno's expression became one of a scared cat, though. Wait. Surely you are not suggesting that us two will kill every single monster in a dungeon, all the way up to the boss, are you? In truth, it'd be only one person doing that, though. You got it. With this arrangement, Jin was able to prevent the potential worst-case scenario of someone stealing his experience points, and the only person next to him would be Jinno, so he wouldn't even need to worry about other people watching him all the time as well. If it's like that, then I'll get to enjoy some serious power leveling, wouldn't I? On top of that, after all the raids were done and dusted, he'd get a nice little bonus of a wonderful building rolling right onto his lap. The only thing remaining now was him persuading Jinno. And as expected, Jinno was very scared at the moment. I don't know why I said was very scared. I don't know why I said it like that. I apologize. And as expected, Jinno was very scared at the moment.
Isn't that way too dangerous, young Nim?
You're only looking at it from one way and not the other.
Eh?
Jin beckoned the kid to come closer, so Jinno leaned forward. If no one else participates in hunting beside us, doesn't that also mean no one will get hurt, as long as we're okay?
Of course.
For the first raid, you were like a third wheel being dragged along, so you couldn't do anything about the incident that had happened. But think about for the moment the ramifications of your own raid team finishing up all 19 raids without a single casualty. Jinno's eyes shot open right up. His eyes shot open right up. If that was the case, then persuading his father would become one level easier. Not only he'd be a D-rank hunter, but the record of being the leader of a team that successfully performed 19 raids without a single incident would be added on top as well. It'd be the definite proof of him being qualified to become the guild master. Nothing would be a better advertisement for him than this, wouldn't it? Jin studied Jinno's expression and smiled in satisfaction. This kid, he's convinced now. From the word go, the person in need was Jinno. As for Jin, he didn't really need to go on a raid with Jinno, but still could enter dungeons via the association giving him a call or through the random boxes. Jinno was thinking now. Although it was a bit scary, if he succeeded in pulling this off, then just as Jin had implied, there would be so much he'd get in return. When recalling the sight of Jin displaying his absolutely overwhelming might in battles from the last time, Jin realized that maybe there wasn't much to fret over at all. Jin-Oh finally made his mind up, albeit after some serious internal struggle.
We'll do it your way, young Nim. In that case, I'll search for suitable teammates.
Very good. Jin nodded his head. They had come to an understanding. Still, since he was still in front of Jin-Oh stopped feeling nervous and tight-chested and displayed a bright smile.
I managed to finally get young Nim on my side.
For some reason, he was not feeling too scared of the upcoming raids. A trustworthy comrade named Jin had joined him, and it'd be a bit easier to form a raid team now, too. As Jin had said, with the terms on offer, many would queue up in line just for a chance to participate.
With this, I'm one step closer to becoming the master.
Jin also smiled brightly as well.
Clean up as many C-rank dungeons
by myself and level up as quickly as possible. The two men exited the cafe with satisfied expressions. After going their separate ways, Jin ran back home. Well, he didn't know when the association would give him a call, after all. It had been over 10 days since he was discharged from the hospital, so it'd not be so strange to hear about a gate opening up in the vicinity. The association normally summoned hunters 2-3 times a month to clear dungeons that appeared within the area. One of the main reasons why he gave 1 hour to Jin-Oh was that the call from the association could come at any time. For the time being, I can't afford to miss even a rank E dungeon. He wanted to kill lots of monsters and raise his levels quickly. Jin knows how I am with video games. That is literally me. How inconvenient it was not to have his smartphone around. What a relief that the new one should arrive in a few days' time. Jin pushed open the front door and entered. The apartment was quiet. It was in the middle of the week, so his little sister was still at school. After confirming that there was no one at home, Jin opened the window displaying the daily quest. I should get today's rewards. Before he went out to meet with Jin-Oh, he had finished the day's daily quest already, but there were too many eyes watching, so he had no choice but to delay receiving his rewards. Well, he couldn't really show off the sight of a blue light wrapping around his body, as well as a box suddenly popping out from nowhere in the middle of the street, now could he?
Kring! Daily quest. Preparations to become strong. Press up 100 times. Complete. 100 out of 100. Sit up 100 times. Complete. 100 out of 100. Squats. 100 times. Complete. 100 out of 100. Running. 10 kilometers. Complete. 11 out of 10. You've completed daily quest preparations to become strong. Completion rewards have arrived. Would you like to confirm? Yes or no?
Yeah. Oh, hold up. Wait. Just as usual, Jin was about to receive his rewards, only to spot something strange and hurriedly stopped himself. His gaze stopped dead and remained fixed to the column of running. Running, 10 kilometers, complete. 11 out of 10. At first, he thought that he ran 1 kilometer more than necessary. However, the longer he thought about it, the stranger it seemed to him. I filled up my quota, so why did it keep recording the extra distance? Jin's gaze became sharper. Was this really nothing more than coincidence? Jin got down to the floor and supported his weight on his arms, and then his body rose up and down without a break. However, his sight was fixed to the seemingly empty air in front. No, I don't see it sounding like that. Way too kind sounding. Are you talking about the system? Well, too bad, because it's how I'm voicing it.
Ding! You've completed 1 press up. Press up 100 times. Complete. 111 out of 100. Ding! You've completed 1 press up. Press up 100 times complete. 112 out of 100.
As I thought. Running wasn't the only category that reflected the extra number of exercises performed. The count for press-up also kept climbing up. Suddenly, he became rather curious just how much higher the numbers would count to. Veins bulged on Jin's arms. Thanks to his enhanced stats, he couldn't feel his weight. Actually, his body felt as light as fuzzy hair. The system is a soft-spoken woman?
Press up 100 times complete. 112 out of 100.
We'll go with that. But we are not gonna regress it any further. Thanks to his enhanced stats, he couldn't feel his weight. Actually, his body felt as light as fuzzy hair. Before long, the number hovering near the 100 mark climbed to 200.
Ding! You've completed one press up. Press up 100 times. Complete. 200 out of 100. Ding! You've completed one press up. Press up 100 times. 200 out of 100.
The count stopped for sure at the 200 mark. He performed a few more press-ups just in case, but it didn't want to go up any higher. Both the sit-up and the squats also stopped counting at the 200 mark. Press up 100 times complete 200 out of 100. Sit up 100 times complete 200 out of 100. Squats 100 times complete 200 out of 100. Running 10 kilometers complete 11 out of 10. 200, no more and no less. It wasn't just climbing up without an end. And no, it wasn't as if the 100 mark was the end. There definitely was something there. His gut feeling was declaring as such. What if there was another result waiting for him once he completed all the overcounting? Let's make sure. With much faster steps than usual, Jin exited the apartment. The next 9 kilometers for the running column were filled up really quickly. When Jin arrived before his home once more, a new mission popped up in his view.
Ding! You've completed Hidden Quest Preparations to Become Strong. Completion rewards have arrived. Would you like to confirm? Yes or no?
The title of the quest hadn't changed, but the type of the quest had changed to Hidden Quest now. His suspicion was proved to be correct. Jin swallowed his saliva. 6! Confirm.
Ding! The following rewards are available. Reward 1. Full recovery of the current physical condition. Reward 2. All stats plus 3. Reward 3. 1 blessed random box or 1 cursed random box. Would you like to collect them all?
All stats raised to 3. His eyes shot open wide. The rewards from the hidden quest proved to be really exceptional. With all the stats getting a 3-point boost, it was the same thing as his level rising up by 3. No, wait. His stats might have risen, but since his level stayed the same, he had gained even more, because with higher stats, raising his level would become that much easier. But at the same time, he felt a bit fearful as well. On one hand, he couldn't help but hold a vague hope that, from today onward, all the daily quests coming his way could be converted to hidden quests instead. However, if the rewards are this big, then the odds of the daily quest coming to an end were incredibly high as well. Also, if the hidden quest was something only available for just this once, then that meant he had to be extra careful when choosing the third reward. Reward 3. 1 blessed random box or 1 cursed random box. This would be his first time having to choose his reward. If he chose one, then he'd lose the other one. So, I wouldn't be able to see one of the two forever, is that right? Just taking a single look at their names, it was rather obvious which one he needed to select, but this could also be a trap as well. Collect the third reward. Collect the third reward. Sorry, I was looking at chat for a quick second.
Ding! You must choose between one of the two available random boxes.
That's also the reason why I'm using like a female voice for this one, because in the other one, I decided, you know what, the female voice was for solo leveling, but in Ragnarok, it's going to be a dude's voice.
This is now the level of which you have gained power.
That's the voice I'm using, yeah. The original's definitely a threatening, crazy old man. It is not. Not the one saying all this stuff, because remember, the system is meant to entice Jin to go along with it. You wouldn't want to go along with anybody who sounded crazy when they were telling you that you succeeded.
You succeeded in getting stronger. Come on, get stronger.
No. It would be inviting. It would make you feel comfortable with getting stronger.
Therefore, the voice of a soft-spoken woman would be best.
Ta-ding!
You must choose between one of the two available random boxes. Blessed Random Box presents the player with the item he wants. Cursed Random Box presents the player with the item he needs. Which will you choose?
Their explanations were exceedingly simple, and that made choosing even harder. If there were no explanations to begin with, he'd have chosen the blessed random box in a heartbeat. But now that he had read the dang explanations, it felt like he'd still end up missing out regardless of which one he chose. A thing that I want and a thing that I need. Just from those explanations, both of them sounded like a good deal. But there's definitely a trap here. The thing he wanted would be something he wanted because he recognized its usefulness to his current situation. However, the thing he needed might not necessarily be like that. Something that he may need but didn't want could come out instead. For instance, when needing a powerful weapon, he might end up getting a horrifying bomb that could completely blow himself and all his teammates into smithereens in one go. That's why it's called the Curse Random Box, right? So he'd go with the lower risk selection. In situations where the end results of a choice weren't known, this would be the wisest way to minimize the amount of regret later on. Jin finally made his decision after a cool-headed weighing of pros and cons. Blessed Random Box. A small box slowly materialized in front of his feet. Jin picked it up. Could it be? And that is the end of chapter 27. Onwards to chapter 28, then 29, and then 30, and then I'll call it a session for today. I should be done before 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I should be done before then. Chapter 28. His heart began beating faster and faster. Faster. His heart began beating faster and faster. Hold on, let me take a sip. Ain't nothing like some water. His heart began beating faster and faster, because the size of the box was rather familiar to him. His hands ripping open the box became far more urgent. As I thought, Jin's eyes grew wider. There was a golden key inside the box. Indeed, it was the key to an instant dungeon, the one he'd been anxiously waiting for. The information on the key appeared soon afterwards.
Ta-ding! Item: Key of the Demon's Castle. Rarity S. Category: Key. A key that will let you enter the dungeon Demon's Castle. Can be used at the Daesung Tower located in Songpa-gu. In Songpa-gu, Seoul.
It's an S. Jin raised his voice in surprise. Of course, there was no guarantee that the rarity ranking had any bearings on the difficulty of the dungeon, but he couldn't think of it any other way. The rarity E key opened a dungeon that was on par with a gate ranked E, after all. What would he do if the difficulty of the instant dungeon turned out to be S then? Even with a raid team consisting solely of S-rank hunters, there was no definite guarantee that such a dungeon would be cleared. The odds were around 50-50. The difficulty of a gate exploded upwards past the rank B, and even when looking through the entire world, there had been too few cases of S-rank gates opening up in the world. One of them appeared in Jeju Island, though. Afterwards, the island of Jeju became an abandoned hellhole where no humans could exist. Jin stared at the key in his hand for a long while. This is what I really wanted? If there was one silver lining to be found here, then that would be the explanation saying he'd be able to enter the dungeon with this key, unlike the previous one which said he'd be transferred instead. The implication being that he could escape at any time if he felt like it. Even if the key suddenly vanished from him, he still had the return stone from the last dungeon waiting to be used inside his inventory as well. He was no longer worried about getting trapped behind an invisible wall like the last time. I've worked hard to earn this chance, so I can't throw it away like that now, can I? He simply had to confirm right away with his own two eyes whether this was what he really wanted or not. Part 2. Demon Castle. Sorry about that, I had to refresh chat. It didn't update to what you guys were saying. Gold. Gold! I love gold! Sorry. Part 2, Demon's Castle. In front of the Daesung Tower, a super tall skyscraper over 100 floors tall was standing straight as if to pierce the heavens above. Indeed, this was what the modern skyscraper should look like. Just looking up at it made him feel extremely dizzy. There were only a few people walking around as it was already late evening now. The streets with not one soul on it gave off an eerie vibe. Still, I can't be sure, so... Jin took a good look around him before pulling up the hood attached to his top to hide his face. If someone saw a person disappearing and appearing again in thin air without a gate around, that might cause a bit of ruckus. Not only that, there were several CCTV cameras installed here and there, in the near vicinity, so it wasn't such a bad idea to avoid being too conspicuous. Actually, there was someone busy eyeing Jin right at that moment.
Who could that kid be?
To think there would be a straggler wearing a hoodie busy loitering around the building at this time of the night. The security guard watching on from inside the building found Jin's behavior rather suspicious and stood up from his chair. However, as this guard walked towards the door, he couldn't help but come to an abrupt stop, and his eyes opened up real wide.
What the heck?
The security guard gasped out in a surprise and hurriedly ran outside. The man was definitely walking towards here, yet he had vanished from the view just like that, utterly without a trace. The security guard searched around his vicinity, but he couldn't even spot an ant here. He tilted his head this way and that before turning around.
Well, I'll be. What a baffling thing that was.
The security guard was about to go back inside the building, but then caught something in the corner of his eyes and turned his head to see what it could be without thinking.
Yeah! Yeah!
He cried out in shock as he fell hard on his butt.
What the heck is going on here?
The security guard cried out with a pale face. A person's disembodied hand floating in the air, then vanished once more. Jin retracted his hand. It's connected to the outside world. Unlike the last time, there was no invisible wall blocking his exit. The key also didn't disappear and remained tucked inside his pocket. If he wanted to, he could get out of here at any time, in other words. Now that I'm finished with confirming the escape route, since he didn't know whether the rarity of the key equated to the difficulty of the dungeon, he was far more cautious than usual. Jin pulled the hood back and took a look behind him. It was a sight shocking enough to make him groan. Just now, when he was taking a few steps towards the Daesung Tower, the world in front of his eyes transformed in an instant. Could this place even be called a dungeon anymore? A completely different world was waiting for him. Instead of the vanished Daesung Tower, a massive tower-like structure stood there. Wait, is that really a tower? Or should I call it a castle instead? A tower rising up high into the air without an end, wrapped in reddish-black flames. It was as if the tower wasn't burning, but it was spewing out billowing flames instead. A burning tower, huh? Rather than the name of Demon's Castle, maybe that nickname suited it better. Jin slowly walked towards this burning tower. Crackle. The closer he got, the louder the noises of flames rampaging around grew. Can I even enter this thing in the first place? However, even if he did, there was yet another problem to consider. Just like the last instant dungeon that was based off on the subway station, there was a good chance that since this dungeon was based off the Daesung Tower, he'd have to climb up 100 floors to clear it completely. He couldn't even begin to imagine just how long that would take. Jin's steps came to a halt. He sensed a strong aura near the entrance. He slowly surveyed the surroundings and spotted a black life form the size of a bull huddled in slumber right in front of the doorway. Jin carefully summoned the Poison Fang of Kasuga.
Ding! Item: Poison Fang of Kasuga. Rarity: C. Type: Dagger. Attack: +25.
It really is going through the whole description of this dagger again, isn't it?
A dagger fashioned from the poison fang of the Kasuga. There are traces of the Kasuga's poison on it, so when attacking, it will cause paralysis and bleeding status effects. Can be stored in the inventory or can be sold at the store. Status effect: paralysis. The target will be unable to move. Success rate is fixed. Status effect: bleeding. The target's stamina will be reduced by 1% per second.
Its attack power wasn't all that high, but the greatness of its added effects were proven in real battles time and time again. It'd be nice if the paralysis works and I get to kill it easily. Jin walked as quietly as possible while approaching that creature. However, it was impossible to fool the olfactory senses of a monster. Soon enough, the creature sniffed the air and raised its body up. Jin clicked his tongue. The creature stood up completely and all three of its heads turned to Jin's direction. Hell's Gatekeeper. Cerberus. It was a huge dog possessing 3 heads. The names written in red letters floating on top of its heads immediately drew his attention. It was proof that the monster's level was very high. Since it's red, does that mean it's around the same level as those centipedes from the penalty zone? Back then, he managed to barely run away from the centipedes. Well, he was only a level 1 back then, so it couldn't be helped. But it's different this time. He had grown stronger quite quickly during the short space of time. Without a doubt, that black creature was strong, but still it didn't come across as truly overwhelming. His enhanced alert perception was telling him that he could do this. It wasn't for nothing that he raised his perception stat. He kept on investing points to this stat so he could easily tell whether he should fight or take flight in cases like this. The Cerberus sensed the enemy and bared its fangs to threaten him. Jin's gaze then wandered off to the creature's tail. It kind of resembled a whip, and its end was enveloped in flames as well. Jin's eyes sharpened in an instant. Fangs and a tail. At the bare minimum, 2 methods of attack, huh? Jin swallowed his dry saliva. 7! The Cerberus slowly closed the distance before stopping right in front of him and began studying him for some reason. Is it looking for an opening? Just as he thought that, the monster attacked him. Jin's eyes opened much, much wider. Too fast! Jin barely evaded the Cerberus's fangs by sliding underneath the leaping monster. The Cerberus landed back on the ground and spun around before beginning biting at him with its 3 heads. The sharp fangs gleamed coldly in between the biting snouts.
Title: Slaughter of Wolves buff effect has activated. Title: Slaughter of Wolves. A title given to a hunter skilled in hunting wolves. When facing animal-type monsters, all of your stats will increase by 40%.
He sensed his body getting lighter. Nice. Jin quickly retreated and wielded his dagger at the Cerberus as it continued to stick close to him. Swish, 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 swish. Clang, 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 clang. The dagger collided with the fangs and issued loud noises. The blade moved at a blinding pace, yet all he could do at that moment was to deflect the Cerberus's attack and nothing else. The venom of 7 is hilarious. It might get progressively worse the more it happens. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I just hope you're ready. The blade moved at a blinding pace, yet all he could do at that moment was to deflect the Cerberus's attacks and nothing else. Even after I buffed up, it's still this strong? The Cerberus's agility had easily exceeded his imaginations. In order to overturn this situation, Jin activated his intimidation skill.
Skill: Intimidation has been activated. The effect has been cancelled due to the high resistance of the target.
Jin's eyes widened. It didn't work? It was at that moment that the long tail of Cerberus flew in like a whip. Whoosh! Jin reflexively ducked his head lower and evaded the tail, but that caused his legs to stop moving for a second, and the monster didn't miss this opportunity. One of its heads powerfully bit into Jin's left shoulder. Gah! Jin summoned all of his strength and stabbed the dagger into the middle of the biting head. Stab!
Effect: Paralysis has been activated. The effect has been cancelled due to the high resistance of the target. Effect: Bleeding has been activated. The effect has been cancelled due to the high resistance of the target.
The Cerberus cried out and let go of him. Thankfully, he was able to minimize the damage done before other heads had the chance to join in on the attack, but his left shoulder was now in tatters. What a scary biting power that was. He tried to move his left arm, but it didn't want to budge. Jin's expression crumbled unsightly. He managed to wound the Cerberus, but when comparing the severity of their injuries, then it was clear that he came off far worse in that exchange. If either of paralysis or bleeding worked, the situation would have been different by now. Jin glared at the Cerberus and clicked his tongue. Then something happened. Huh? The eyes of the Cerberus were being dyed in a crimson color all of a sudden. Inexplicably, Jin sensed something ominous was about to happen. What could it be?
Hell's Gatekeeper Cerberus is using skill Rage. Its state of rage will persist for the next 3 minutes. All of Cerberus's stats will be increased by 100%. Cerberus will no longer feel pain.
Jin cried out, "What did you just say?" I'm sorry, that caught me off guard a little bit. What did you just say? A monster just used a skill. In that instant, the Cerberus leapt off the ground, and Jin says a word that I can't say because I don't use profanity, least of which coarse profanity as he just used. Even before he could react, the Cerberus appeared right before his eyes. He hurriedly swung his dagger, but it only managed to graze the side of one of its heads, and all 3 heads bit into Jin simultaneously. Jin gritted his teeth. His neck, waist, and thigh all got bitten. The Cerberus ran at its top speed and slammed Jin against the castle's gate. Slam! Jin's HP hit the rock bottom in an instant.
HP 411 out of 3,602. Your HP has decreased below 30%, and skill tenacity has been activated. All damage received will be reduced by 50%.
Thanks to the damage reduction in the tenacity passive, he was able to avoid getting killed in one hit. Jin's eyebrows shot up in anger. And that is the end of Chapter 28. Onwards to Chapter 29. Chapter 29. It'd be easy to go mad from pain and wildly thrash about, but he'd lose his great opportunity, which would most likely never happen again. Losing his consciousness now would mean his end. 178, 179, 180. Jin had been bitterly waiting for the end of the 3-minute duration and finally revealed his hidden trump card. The first reward. Give it to me now. He immediately collected the first reward from the daily quest he had saved up until now.
Reward 1. Full recovery of the current physical condition has been applied.
A blue light enveloped him and all depleted health reverted back to full.
HP 3,602 out of 3,602.
Even his tattered left arm was healed as good as new in the blink of an eye. This is my chance. Jin's eyes gleamed coldly. In such close proximity, no matter how agile this monster was, it'd not be able to dodge his attacks. Jin rapidly caught one of Cerberus' necks with his left arm and stabbed the poison fang of Kasuga in the middle of its neck. Stab! 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 The rage state had ended by now, and the Cerberus began to violently thrash about, trying to escape from Jin's embrace. However, Jin did not let go and held on with his powerful arms. The harder the Cerberus struggled, the stronger he gripped the neck of the monster. In the meantime, his dagger continued to stab into the creature's neck. Stab! 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 The Cerberus bit into Jin as it struggled to the bitter end, but the battle had already been decided by then. Stab! Stab! The poison fang of Kasuga now traveled lower down from the neck and stabbed the Cerberus' chest. Stab! 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 Soon enough, the monster's resistance became noticeably weaker and weaker. In the end, the heads of the Cerberus fell to the side, lifeless.
You have defeated Hell's Gatekeeper, Cerberus. Level up, level up, level up, level up.
In one breath, his level rose up by 4. That was how difficult this battle was. Jin only let go of the Cerberus' neck after confirming its body going limp with his own eyes. The heavy body sprawled to the floor without any resistance whatsoever. Plop. Jin rested his hands on his knees. Only now could he breathe a sigh of relief. A monster that could use a skill. If he didn't prepare a hidden trump card, then he'd have been killed for sure. A chill crawled down his spine just from thinking about it. Oh, I almost forgot. Items. Would there be as many rewards befitting his life or death struggle to bring down this monster? After calming himself down, Jin reached out towards the Cerberus.
Ta-ding! You have discovered item, Gatekeeper's necklace. Take it. You have discovered item, key to the castle's gate. Take it. You have discovered item, Cerberus's molar. ×3. Take it. Take them all.
A steel necklace originally found around one of the Cerberus' necks, a gray key, and 3 molars of a monster appeared in his hand. He only lived because the system carried him? Yes. Yes. Had it not been for how the system was basically built, the story of solo leveling would have ended right here.
Item, Gatekeeper's necklace. Rarity A. Type, necklace. Agility +20. Perception +20. Item,
Key to the castle's gate. Rarity A. Type key. The key to unlock the gates of the demon's castle can only be acquired after killing the gatekeeper. Item: Cerberus's molar. Rarity: none. Type: miscellaneous. Oh. Jin's eyes went round. This necklace can boost both my agility and perception by 20 points? A necklace with eye-spinningly good options came out. Its rarity was also ranked A. Out of all the items he'd seen so far, this one featured the highest rarity ranking yet. Well, I had to go through so much to kill it, so... Indeed, there was no way that its rarity would be low. However, when it came to actually putting the necklace on, he couldn't help but to hesitate big time. The thing was, it was shaped like a roundish metallic choker with spikes sprouting out in regular intervals, so no matter what it said on the cover, it was undoubtedly a dog collar. Jin closed his eyes and deliberated on his choices for a long time before deciding to try it on at least once and brought the necklace closer to his neck. Then a message popped up.
Ting!
Will you wear item gatekeeper's necklace? Jin fell into yet another bout of dilemma for a second before helplessly murmuring out his answer. Sure thing. It was then the necklace slowly disappeared from his view. You're now wearing item gatekeeper's necklace. Huh? Jin hurriedly summoned his status window. Stats: Strength 60, Stamina 39, Agility 80, Intelligence 37, Perception 67. Available points to distribute 0. Reduction to physical damage 20%. Holy crap! Both his agility and perception were increased by 20 for real. The option was now in effect, in other words. It seemed like he didn't have to worry about walking around displaying the items he wore. The fact that he didn't have to be seen with a dog collar on his neck brought him a huge sense of relief. Next up are the molars. Jin summoned the store next. He sold the Japtem Cerberus's molar and got 150,000 gold for each. He sold all three off right away. Soon, 450,000 gold entered his hands. I don't know about you, but no amount of stats would make me wear a dog collar. I wouldn't either. If it could tell me, hey, you can fly if you wear this, my dignity is worth more than any ranked item in existence. I will never put on anything that could grant me insurmountable power, but it was an embarrassment to me. So yeah, I'm good. I'm with you right there, kitty. Soon, 450,000 gold entered his hands. Current gold, 562,366. What kind of Japtem is this expensive? It was a rather nice baseline to judge the overall difficulty of this dungeon. In other words, the difficulty of clearing the demon's castle would be incredibly high. However, it wasn't all necessarily bad news. He only hunted a single monster, yet he got to earn over 4 times the amount of gold compared to the other whole day spent inside the Hopjong Station's instant dungeon. If he saved up gold in this fashion, it wouldn't be too far from now when he'd get to purchase all those items that cost millions upon millions in the store. That is, as long as I get to clear this dungeon. Jin stared up at the burning tower. Crackle. The very top of the structure was completely shrouded in some kind of blurry fog. He had to actually enter the tower if he wanted to see what was going on inside. But Jin shook his head. Now's not the time. He only barely managed to hunt down a single sentry standing guard by the door, even with his title buffing him up and resorting to using up the quest reward too. He couldn't even guess just what kind of danger would be waiting for him beyond that gate. So, now was the time for him to back off. Smart. Still, he was certain of one thing. Just as the explanation said, this key to the demon's castle was indeed something he wanted. The name Blessed Random Box wasn't wrong. Leveling up quickly, Valuable items and plenty of gold, too. This place had it all. And one day, he'd get to claim them all as his. Only that, today wasn't that day. Although he was slightly unwilling, he stored the gray key inside his inventory. I'll return. Definitely. Very soon. Jin smiled as he turned around to leave. Part 3. Coincidence. A few days went by without any incident. Jin-O called Jin almost daily and reported on the progress. From the day after their meeting, he had called Jin precisely 3 times. Young Nim, it's me, Jin-O! Details only. Yes, Young Nim. It seemed that the job of finding other teammates was going rather smoothly. Jin-O repeatedly emphasized that the formation of the raid team would end soon, and that Jin should wait just a little while longer. Looks like he's really scared of me dropping out, huh? However, Jin couldn't just wait and do nothing while waiting for the team to form, so he assessed the website for hunters today as well. He asked around all the time for the past few days, but no freelancer-run raid teams wanted to work together with an E-rank hunter. He simply had gotten lucky on that day. Sure, Huang Dong-suk had been scheming some nefarious things, but in any case, Jin still ended up being a part of a raid team, didn't he? Thanks to that, I made lots of money. My levels went up and even got me a new skill, too. Should he feel grateful to Huang Dong-suk in that case? Jin let off a smirk. Well, as he was now, he wouldn't mind meeting up with other selfish hunters acting like geckos at the moment. No raid teams wanted him. The association wasn't calling him, and keys to instant dungeons didn't want to show up, too. Basically, he was doing nothing but suck on his fingers for the past couple of days. Is it time to eat already? Jin felt hungry as he spent hours roaming the online job postings, so he headed to the kitchen. But when he opened the fridge's door, it was completely empty inside. This was the inevitable risk of not going shopping for the past few days, his excuse being that his mind had been preoccupied with several urgent matters until now. Should I go shopping then? Jin yawned out slightly and closed the fridge door. One of the few advantages the apartment he was living in had was its close proximity to a large supermarket. Wearing simple, easy-to-move clothes, Jin left his home. A 10-minute walk later, he had arrived at his destination already. As soon as he stepped in through the door, the wide-open expanse of the supermarket's interior entered his view. Maybe because there wasn't some sort of promotion going on, it was quieter than usual in the aisles. Jin picked up a basket and slowly walked around. Ever since his mother was confined to the hospital, Jin had been acting as the head of the family, and now he grew to be more or less familiar with chores of the household, such as shopping for groceries. There isn't anything catching my eyes today, though. While he was deeply staring at the displayed produce, trying to think about what to prepare for dinner. I'm back. Thank you for your patience. Don't worry, I'll cut out all these pauses. Ever since his mother was confined to the hospital, Jin had been acting as the head of the family, and now he grew to be more or less familiar with chores of the household, such as shopping for groceries. There isn't anything catching my eyes today, though. While he was deeply staring at the displayed produce, trying to think about what to prepare for dinner. Pardon me, young man. I see that you're feeling much better now. Pardon me, young man. I see that you're feeling much better now. A rather friendly voice came from behind him, and Jin turned around to look who it was. Who is he? Because of his high perception stat, he knew that there was a hunter nearby. But this was a supermarket where lots of people came and went, and hunters also had to go shopping too, so he didn't dwell on that matter for long. However, he didn't expect that hunter to engage him in conversation. Not only that, a hunter he actually knew too. Mr. Song? Jin's expression brightened in an instant. Mr. Song Ji-yul looked at Sung Jin-woo with an expression half in disbelief and the other half in delight.
I did hear the news that you were fine, but I still can't believe it, even after running into you like this.
Song Jiul formed a deeply moved expression next. Jin felt kinda embarrassed by the emotional lies of Song and sheepishly scratched the side of his temple. Meanwhile, Song continued on.
I should have gone to visit you at the hospital, but for some reason the folks at the association all tightly shut their mouths and I couldn't hear any concrete information on you until now. Did you know that Miss Dewey is also anxiously waiting for your news?
Miss Dewey? Really?
That's right. She said she'd give up being a hunter, but still she stopped by at least last week's raid location just to look for you.
Last week? After listening to Mr. Song's story, it turned out that, rather coincidentally, there was a raid organized by the association on the very same day he entered Huang Dong-suk's team.
That was why there hadn't been any word from the association until now.
It was not that there hadn't been any calls from the association, but more like he missed it when it did come. A small mystery got resolved pretty easily, just like that. Song studied Sung Jinu's appearance here and there, still mystified by what he was seeing.
By the way, was Mr. Sung this tall before? And with his bad leg and all, too?
Song's gaze. I know I want to say their full names, but this is a habit of mine I gotta break. I just say their last name or their first name. Song's gaze naturally headed lower, and then his eyes grew extra wide in shock.
Your leg?
And that is the end of chapter 29. Onwards to the last chapter on this reading for today. And I originally thought I wasn't going to be done before 8 o'clock, but it looks like I'm probably going to be done around that time. Let's get it going. Chapter 30. Jin calmly made his reply.
When I came to, my leg had been all healed up. Even I'm not sure what happened to me.
Song nodded his head. Ever since Gates appeared for the first time 10 years ago, many illogical things continue to transpire to this day. The people called hunters who had awakened their abilities were a prime example of this. A healer ranked S could reputedly heal a person who was ripped to shreds back to normal, as long as the victim was still alive. What if a high-rank healer healed Jin's injuries while he was unconscious? If that was the case, then his severed leg being reattached didn't even qualify as a miracle.
It'd do no good to see a young man such as yourself becoming disabled like that. What a relief this is. What a relief.
Song lightly patted his chest as if a big weight of his had been lifted off his shoulders now. It was then Jin's gaze drifted towards Song's left arm. The old man's sleeve was empty. Song chuckled and massaged his left shoulder.
Don't you worry about it. A hunter getting injured during the raid is a normal occurrence after all.
I know his voice isn't like this in the English dub of the anime, but just roll with it.
No, I've been lucky for not running into an accident until then.
Song spoke as if it wasn't much to fret over, but the gazes of other people walking by weren't like that.
Oh my gosh, what a regrettable thing that. Did a monster do that?
Aunties out shopping and students walking by whispered to each other after spotting Song's empty sleeve. Heck, there was even this one guy who quietly openly stared as well while looking rather mystified as well. Jin quickly spoke up.
Should we go somewhere else?
There were far too many people walking by here. Walking by here, right by the butchery aisle. Song had been feeling uncomfortable by all the stares, so he nodded his head quickly. He still had few more things to say to Jin, too.
That would be a good idea.
The two of them hurriedly walked away in order to find a quiet spot to chat. But as they walked, Song sensed that something was rather odd here.
The sounds of Mr. Song's steps are...
Jin's steps were just too soft. The youth was walking right beside Song, yet it was hard to detect his presence. Why was that? The older man even felt that, were they to start fighting here, he'd be unable to even touch a hair on Jin's body, even though he was rank C and Jin was rank D.
Just what am I even thinking about?
Song shook his head. That wasn't the important thing right now. There was something he badly wanted to say to Mr. Song. Mr. Song. Not Song, but Sung, sorry. Song is one dude, Sung is Jin. There was something he badly wanted to say to Mr. Sung. No, he simply had to say it. Song came to a stop where it was quiet and isolated. Jin also stopped there. Did I say rank D? Did I say rank D? I'm sorry. The older man even felt that were they to start fighting, he'd be unable to touch a hair on Jin's body, even though he was rank C and Jin was ranked E. I was sure that I said rank E. That's my bad. Sorry about that, everybody.
Just what am I even thinking about?
Song shook his head. That wasn't the important thing right now. There was something he badly wanted to say to Mr. Sung. No, he simply had to say it. Song came to a stop where it was quiet and isolated. Jin also stopped there. Song turned to look at Jin, and before the youth could stop him, bowed his head 90 degrees.
Mr. Sung, thank you.
When a man who was old enough to be his dad lowered his head like that, Jin couldn't help but feel solemn as well. Jin, of course, tried to dissuade Song, but the older man didn't listen and instead carried on to what he wanted to say.
If you say 11 people died because of me, then you're responsible for saving 6 lives that day. My share of the blame in that matter is the biggest, so on the behalf of all the hunters who were there, let me say thank you.
Song meant every word he spoke, and Jin could feel the old man's sincerity as well. The situation had become somewhat awkward, but it didn't feel so bad. How should he go about describing it? He was feeling proud? Of course, that didn't mean he should let an elder remain in that bowing position.
Thanks. Please, thank you, but so please stand back up, please.
Just as Jin tried to persuade Song to stand up straight, the latter's phone went off. Song asked for Jin's understanding and pulled out the smartphone tucked inside his inner pocket.
Hello?
Song's face gradually hardened as he answered the call.
I understand. I'll be there soon.
Song ended the call and spoke to Jin next.
Looks like I need to get going.
He was implying that there was a private matter he had to attend to. However, Jin was able to listen on the contents of the conversation. His hearing had been improved by a great deal after his perception stat rose up dramatically. That call just now was from the association, asking for cooperation in clearing a gate nearby. Song was actually hiding the truth because he was worried that Jin would want to tag along, that Jin might want to participate in the raid even though it hadn't been long since his discharge from the hospital. Jin asked the older man.
That was from the association, yes?
Song hesitated slightly before making his reply.
Did you hear everything?
When the association formed a raid team, it summoned every hunter affiliated with the organization who lived in the vicinity. If Song received the call, that meant Jin's house had been called as well. It was the order to mobilize, the one Jin had been waiting for. Jin cut to the chase.
I'll go with you.
But you, Mr. Sung. A look of uncertainty floated up on Song's face as he stared at Jin. The two men arrived at the meeting place. The gate had formed in the middle of the road pretty close to residential areas, so the police officers called in to control the access to the location. However, there were almost no onlookers present here to begin with. The majority of gates the association took on were those dangerous ones that had been left alone for too long after their initial discovery. Besides, even if one were to stick around a gate, one would still not get to see how hunters fought anyway. It was only a couple of curious, naughty kids loitering around who got chased away by the officers every now and then. With a thud, the door to the taxi closed shut. Jin and Song had exited from the taxi and made their way toward the location where the other hunters had been gathered, only for the cops to stop them.
Please show me your IDs.
Song pulled out his wallet and showed his license. I'm Song Chiul, the rank C hunter. This is my colleague, Sung Jinu. The cops compared the photo on the license to Song's face before returning it and parted ways.
Sorry for the inconvenience, hunters. Keep up the good work.
Song performed a slight nod to the policeman and continued on. Jin followed right behind him. The employee from the association was waiting in front of the gate. It was a young woman wearing a round-rimmed pair of glasses. She approached the two men after spotting them from a distance.
Sung Jinu, Hunter Neem. How did you get here? Sung Jinu, Hunter Neem. You weren't answering your phone until now.
Song replied instead. We were in the same location and came here together after you guys called me.
Ah, is that so? I thought that Sung Jinu, Hunter Neem was avoiding answering our calls again.
The association employee chuckled and cracked a joke. Well, that indeed had been true in the past. A long time ago, Jin got injured badly during a raid, and he grew fearful of going to dungeons, which led to him switching off his phone for a while. In the end, he had to return to raiding dungeons, since not answering the call 3 times in a row meant he'd be chased out from the association. Recalling his past, Jin only smiled in bitterness.
Oh, right. Other hunters are waiting for you. Why don't you two head over there and greet them?
There were other hunters who had arrived earlier where the association employee was pointing at. Well, there were only 2 hunters there, however. The number of those willing to come had decreased sharply after that huge incident. Jin heard from Song on their way here that, besides those who died, many other hunters decided to quit this life from the shock of that underground temple incident. One of them happens to be Miss Chui. Jin took a look around, but he couldn't see her. When Jin and Song approached closer, the 2 hunters awkwardly averted their gazes. Jin narrowed his eyes. But of course, these 2 happened to be Kim Song-sik, who ran off trying to save only himself, and the other male hunter who had discarded the injured Jinu. Of course, they would find it rather awkward to face him.
Excuse me?
Excuse me, Mr. Sung? Kim was thinking of at least greeting the youth, but when he was subjected to Jin's cold glare, he eventually shifted his gaze again. Kim shut his mouth, studied the mood for a moment before shuffling further away from there. He stopped at a bit of distance away and sneaked a glance at Jin before he tilted his head in confusion. Is he really the Sung Jinu that I know? I mean, his eyes are fierce as a monster, man. As fierce as a monster, man. Like a real monster. Kim shuddered deeply. As he thought, his arm was covered in goosebumps. Jin withdrew his glare filled with hostilities. Thankfully, quite unlike Jino, Kim was quick on the uptake. After locking eyes once, he didn't even try to come near Jin's vicinity. Yep, knew I was going to go past 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock now. Exactly 8 o'clock. He sincerely hoped that this arrangement will remain for the rest of the raid. Mr. Sung! Song, standing next to Jin, shifted his gaze in a direction and smiled gently. There she is. Jin had turned his head in the direction Song was looking at, but before he had the chance to completely turn around to look,
Mr. Jinu!
Something rather soft suddenly hugged him tightly. Miss Jui? While Jin was getting flustered, Jui was too busy making sure he was fine with a tearful face.
Are you all right? You're not hurt anywhere, right? Your leg! Mr. Jinu, how come your leg is...
Jui's eyes went extra round as she altered her gaze between his face and his leg. There was a bit of difference in how extreme it was, but nevertheless, her reaction was more or less the same with Song's. Oh, that. Just as Jin was about to reply, How steamy! It's so steamy, I say! Both. How steamy. Steamy, I say. Both the gazes of Jin and Jui shifted over in the direction of that voice. From afar, an unknown man was whistling loudly at them. More importantly, he was wearing the blue-colored prison overalls. Is there a film shoot going on around nearby or something? While Jin was tilting his head in confusion, a man wearing a business suit climbed down from the front seat of a certain minivan. He then threw out a measured warning at the prison overalls guy. Shut your mouth. The prison overalls guy pretended to not know anything by staring at the distance. However, he quickly threw an oily wink at Jui when the business suit looked back inside the van. Immediately, Jin's expression crumpled. 2 more people climbed out of the van right away. Both of them were men, and particularly worthy of note was the fact that they all wore prison overalls and had been cuffed as well. The business suit led the 3 prison overalls towards the association's employee, and she welcomed him with a bright expression.
You finally arrived.
Please forgive our tardiness. There was traffic on the road. The business suit then proceeded to sign on each of the documents the association employee presented to him. In the meantime, the employee called for the hunters to gather around. These folks are the replacement convicts who will participate in the raid alongside you, hunters. Oh, wait.
These folks are the replacement convicts who will participate in the raid alongside you, hunters.
And so the expressions of the hunters hardened considerably. Kim Song-sik was the first to step forward. What? Replacement convicts? Are you telling us to go on a raid along with a bunch of criminals? Hunters who had committed crimes had 2 choices. Either spend their allotted time behind the bars, or cooperate with the association and reduce their sentences. Most chose the latter option, and they were referred to as the replacement convicts. The association employee repeatedly lowered her head.
I'm really sorry about this. It's only because the number of hunters active in our district has declined so much that the association has no choice but to do this. However, they will be accompanied by a hunter from the monitoring division, so you don't have to worry too much.
Kim asked, still full of suspicion. A hunter from the monitoring division, you say? And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of chapter 30, and that will bring my entire reading of chapters 21 through 30 of the solo leveling novel to its end. Firstly, I want to say thank you for being patient with me during this long read. It was incredibly fun, as it always is, and I will see you the Monday after next as we continue with chapters 31 through 40. Thank you for any corrections or anything wrong that I said and you guys corrected me on. I hope you guys enjoyed the dramatic reading and the voices that went along with this reading. I am going to go ahead and rest because it is 8 o'clock and pretty much the majority of my day is gone, so I'm chilling because tomorrow we continue with more Death Stranding. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. Hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. And because I know you're coming back anyway. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples.